Chapter 623. Chu Yang sighed and said, "This is very troublesome." Mo Tianji sneered, "But I made a mistake in my judgment. I overestimated them." He disdainfully said, "Ao clan would have been annihilated if I hadn't believed in the rumors. It's a pity that I missed such a good opportunity. What a pity." Chu Shen was shaken. "Tell me about it." Ao clan has always been the leader of the three heavens. And Ao Xieyun has come out the most of the younger generation. Therefore, I took it for granted that Ao Xieyun was the future successor of Ao clan. And I wasn't wrong about this. And Ao Xieyun could be regarded as the best in terms of intelligence and resourcefulness. So I wasn't wrong about this. That's right, Chu Yang frowned. But I was wrong. I was ridiculously wrong. Mo Tianji sighed regretfully. Ao clan is known as the 7 great geniuses of this generation. In other words, there are other great geniuses besides Ao Xieyun. They are Ao Qingyun, Ao Mengyun, Ao Langyun, Ao Yuyun, Ao Fengyun, and Ao Qingyun. This person doesn't show himself much. But even Ao clan recognizes him as a genius. So how can he be mediocre? So I thought, that other person has the reputation of being a genius. Moreover, he is equally famous as Ao Xieyun in the #1 clan of the Ao clan. So, he can't be that bad, right? Mo Tianji said. Yes, I would have thought the same if it had been me, Chu Yang nodded. Mo Tianji stomped his foot and sighed, "That's why I was wrong. I was gravely wrong. My original plan was to cause a storm in the three heavens. And I would push the O clan alliance to the heart of the struggle. Then I would force them to take the risk of intercepting and killing Ao Xieyun. And they would certainly shift the blame to Xie Danxiong for intercepting and killing Ao Xieyun. Therefore, I let Xie Danxiong go to Ao clan first to block their escape route. Moreover, I calculated that the Ao clan would certainly make a move as long as Ao Xieyun's life and death were uncertain. And that great genius would be dispatched. Firstly, it would be for revenge. Secondly, Ao clan would have to make preparations in case Ao Xieyun dies. Then, they would have to choose the best candidate for the next generation. And survival of the fittest of the weak in Jianghu is the best choice. Not only do they train soldiers but they also look at people. Every time Mo Tianji said the words great genius, he would gnash his teeth and emphasize them. The O clan and the other clans have also been pushed to the heart of the struggle. Ao Xieyun has also been hunted down for thousands of miles. Then the Ao clan has also set out. And the one who has set out is that great genius as expected. My calculations have been right all this time. But what happened next was out of my control. Besides, I can't tell anyone else about this gloomy feeling except for you. Once I do, it will only mess up the army's morale. Mo Tianji sighed with incomparable depression and melancholy. That's because the wise and mighty king of Helchu used a scheme to destroy the Meng clan. Then you joined forces with the Xie clan to get rid of the O clan. These two matters were extremely pleasantly surprised for me. But I also felt great regret and anger in addition to being pleasantly surprised. After all, you had ruined my plan. And it's a huge plan. Mo Tianji said indifferently. Spoiled your plan? Chu Yang was puzzled. Yes, you shouldn't have destroyed the Meng clan. Mo Tianji sighed and said, wouldn't it have been better if the Meng clan had stayed? My original plan was to wait until the time was right. And the Ao clan would have set out. Then our big clans would have raised our banners to eliminate the evil forces and call upon the entire Jianghu. That's because the Meng clan is an evil force. Therefore, the other clans would have been the accomplices of the evil forces if they had stayed with the Meng clan. Then we would have stood on the moral high ground without any effort. Moreover, we would have been able to command the heroes of the world. And they would have attacked us together. At that time, because we were the ones who advocated it, and our strength is strong enough, even the Ao clan will have no choice but to listen to our orders and acknowledge our leadership position. Therefore, I could have used the Meng clan to push our big clans to the supreme position in one fell swoop. At least, we would have had such a nominal position before the end of this war. But we would have been able to achieve such a position after the end of this war. That's because we would have gotten rid of evil for the people. Although there are no good people in the three heavens, but once this matter comes out, there will definitely be a lot of hot-blooded people coming over. And such a person is the best choice for increasing the strength of the clan. I had even planned how to recruit him, how to end things, how to keep him, how to, Mo Tianji heaved a long sigh and glared at Chu Yang. Fuck. Chu Yang was dumbfounded. Who would have thought that the move he was so proud of back then, to kill the enemy and weaken the enemy's forces, would actually be more of a hindrance? What the hell was that supposed to mean? But the thing that makes me most unwilling is that the annihilation of the Meng clan was done by those clans themselves. Moreover, it was done so brazenly in broad daylight. In this way, it would be inexcusable if we insist that they are evil. If we are not careful, they might even stand on the moral high ground and deal with us. Tell me, aren't you spoiling my plans? Emotianji sighed. That was the first thing that caught me off guard. That's because I never thought that you would have made your move at that time. Moreover, you would have acted so quickly and ruthlessly. I didn't even know that you were done on your side. Chuyang lowered his head and drank his tea. Let's not talk, okay? The second miscalculation was that group of bastards from the AO clan. Those bastards attacked those clans after they came out. But I never thought that those bastards would have started to fight for power and profit after that illusory spear strike. How stupid was that? It's fine that they fought for power and profit. But I never thought that they would have targeted you guys. First, the big clans didn't make a move. So they didn't dare to make a move on the big clans. Second, you guys were scattered soldiers. So you guys were easy to deal with. Third, you guys had potential. So they wanted to recruit a lifelong high-level fighter to suppress their brothers. Fourth, their real purpose was to use you guys to dispel our plans. So they had a vague ambition to unify the three heavens. Emotianji laughed in an incomparably cynical manner. The brothers had internal strife at this time of crisis. Moreover, each of them had targeted their potential allies. Such people were called great geniuses in the AO clan? I've been deceived by the word genius in the AO clan. Emotianji drank a mouthful of tea. The current situation is like this. I had originally planned for two sides to fight for hegemony. But it has now become a tripartite balance of power. The AO clan is the only big clan. It doesn't attach itself to anyone. The O clan has gathered together and is asking for reinforcements everywhere. It's very cohesive. On the contrary, the people of our side are panic-stricken because of those idiots of the AO clan. The most speechless thing is that the people of the AO clan have the same goal. But each of them wants to be the boss. Emotianji shook his head and forced a smile. I never thought of this before this incident. It's their overconfident ambition. Emotianji finally finished speaking and said, this is the current situation. It's my fault for not being thorough enough. Chuyang was somewhat flabbergasted. Emotianji had calculated all aspects to such an extent in such a complicated situation. His brain had to calculate many things, especially when he had analyzed for so long. And he had analyzed all of these things because of his own mistakes. This made people have a whole new level of respect for him. Only a person who could clearly see his own flaws could correct them and become more perfect. Chuyang believed that Emotianji had calculated to this extent. So, he had at least a draft even if he didn't have a comprehensive countermeasure. So, what are you going to do in the face of this situation? Chuyang asked straightforwardly. I have a countermeasure. But I'm waiting for the news. Emotianji deeply knitted his brows. His eyes exposed a worried look as he said, the enemy isn't the only one with idiots. We also have many on our side. He sighed. There's no problem on your side. There's also no problem on Jimo's side. There's no problem on Jimo's side. So there's no problem on Huyen clan's side. There's also no problem on Gu Duxing's side. There's also no problem on Xia Danqiong's side. These are all our established forces. Chuyang frowned. He sensitively sensed that Emotianji hadn't finished speaking. You mean that there will be problems on Dong Wushang and Luo Kudi's side? This was also what Chuyang was most worried about. Emotianji took a deep breath. I hope there won't be any problems. If there really is a problem, it'll be an extremely serious problem. Chuyang silently nodded. Emotianji was right. If there were problems on Dong Wushang and Luo Kudi's side, it would be fatal. But this kind of problem could only be solved by the two of them. Even Chuyang couldn't help them now. Also, I have a feeling. Emotianji stood up and paced slowly. He said, right now the alliance over there is obviously at a disadvantage in terms of strength. But they're still calm and not moving. So I suspect that they're waiting for someone. Or rather, they're waiting for reinforcements. And this reinforcement should be very confident and very strong. Emotianji frowned and said, I suspect that this reinforcements are likely to come from the upper three heavens. Chuyang thought for a while and said, there's indeed such a possibility. Only with such a backup plan would they be able to remain so calm. Chapter 624. Chu Yang frowned. He was somewhat worried. Will something really happen to Dong Wuxiang and Luo Kudi? His heart was filled with uncertainty as he thought of this. He only felt that his heart was thumping. An ominous premonition shrouded his heart. I have already warned Dong Wu Lei and Luo Ku Wu. But, Mo Tianji frowned, I am not sure. After all, power is something that can make people go crazy. And the most I can do is to warn them. Chu Yang sighed. He stood up and walked to the window. He looked into the distance and said softly, the two of them will be fine. I believe that they will be able to handle it. Mo Tianji sighed, I hope so. But, once it happens, even if Dong Wuxiang and Luo Kudi are fine, the others will be. Chu Yang said indifferently, I only want the two of them to be fine. As for the others, how can I care so much? Mo Tianji was silent. After a long time he said, Li Xiong too may be involved. Dong Wuxiang is an indispensable part of my plan. Luo Kudi is also important. The plan must wait for the news from the other side before it can start. Chu Yang nodded in understanding, as long as you have a plan. Mo Tianji nodded. Chu Yang pondered for a moment and said, Brother Mo, when you are making a plan, don't just think about victory or defeat. It is best to think about human nature and harmony. Mo Tianji was frightened. He thought carefully for a long time. He repeated these words to himself several times. After a long time he finally said, Thank you, Brother Chu. Chu Yang smiled and nodded. Mo Tianji didn't have a deep understanding of this aspect. Therefore he made a wrong judgment about the Ao clan. But Chu Yang knew that Mo Tianji wouldn't need too long to master these things. Looking at the current situation, perhaps the master of calculation and manipulation from his previous life would finally take shape after this battle. The sound of fluttering wings could be heard in the sky. It seemed as if a few birds had flown in. Then someone walked over in a hurry. Clanlord, there is news. Bring it in. Mo Tianji said in a deep voice. Then he quickly walked to the door. There were 5 pieces of news. Mo Tianji opened them one by one and looked at them. Every time he looked at one he would read out loud. Chu Yang listened quietly. He couldn't help but feel excited. Ao Yu Yun of the Ao clan tried to ambush GMO, but failed. The Li clan's plan to intercept and kill GMO also failed. GMO's whereabouts are unknown. He didn't return to the G clan. Mo Tianji read out the first piece of news. Chu Yang smiled lightly. Mo Tianji also shook his head and laughed. These people are really brainless. GMO has been in the northern wilderness for so long. And he has finally returned. So, how can he not see his fiancée first? Moreover, he still had to work when he got home. So, how could that lazy GMO be willing to go home first? This group of people actually didn't analyze his personality and just foolishly waited on the road back to the G clan. I really don't know if they are cooling off or going to do something. It's pardonable that the Li clan couldn't kill GMO. After all, the Li clan doesn't have any outstanding individuals. However, Ao Yu Yun actually did such a foolish thing. This really makes me have a whole new level of respect for this genius. When Mo Tianji said the word genius, he put a lot of emphasis on it. It was obvious that he was very interested in the so-called geniuses of Ao clan. Chu Yang gave him a thumbs up. Awesome. You can even calculate this. Mo Tianji snorted and said, You obviously know this in your heart. He picked up the second piece of paper and slowly read, The Zhao clan ambushed Luo Kudi. Luo Kudi calmly killed his way out of the encirclement. Then he encountered Ao Qingyun of the Ao clan. Luo Kudi wasn't a match for him. So he killed his way out of the encirclement and fled. Ao Qingyun is chasing after him. Mo Tianji read out the second piece of news. Both of them frowned at the same time. This news wasn't very good. What's the third piece of news? Chu Yang urged. Ao Lang Yun of the Ao clan intercepted King of Hell Chu. King of Hell Chu went missing and didn't appear. According to rumors, Ao Lang Yun and the Black Devil had a fierce battle. They both won and lost. The Ao clan lost more than 20 king-level experts. Mo Tianji faintly smiled. He read halfway and shook the piece of paper in his hand. Brother Chu, this Black Devil should be you, right? Brother Mo's vision is like a torch. Chu Yang faintly smiled. It's not that my vision is like a torch. It's just that you're too familiar with framing and killing people. Moreover, the Black Devil has been badly battered these days. So, how could he have dared to look for trouble with the Ao clan? Moreover, I know the whereabouts of the Black Devil. Mo Tianji chuckled and continued to read. Then he suddenly opened his eyes wide. The Ao clan intercepted King of Hell Chu. King of Hell Chu retreated unscathed. the entire O clan was annihilated. The clan lord O Qingwu and the young clan lord O Duxiao died on the spot. Brother Chu, did you really kill them all? Mo Tianji raised his head and looked at Chu Yang as if he was looking at a monster. Brother Mo's intelligence network is indeed the best in the world. Chu Yang smiled and praised. This sentence was undoubtedly an admission that all the information was true. Mo Tianji looked at him and sucked in a few breaths of cold air. Then he restored his calm state of mind and said, I had no other choice. You also know my disposition. I like to manipulate. And manipulating requires extremely powerful and accurate information. Even the slightest difference won't do. Therefore, I haven't been able to recruit many experts over the years. So, I've been making great efforts to build my underground intelligence network. And it has already spread throughout the upper three heavens. Mo Tianji proudly smiled. Mo Tianji, may be far inferior to other clans when it comes to strength. But, my intelligence network is the best in the world when it comes to intelligence. He confidently smiled and said, including the upper three heavens. Chu Yang nodded. He believed in these words. He had a deep understanding of Mo Tianji's intelligence network in his previous life. Mo Tianji had been powerful in his previous life. But he hadn't been the clan lord of the Mo clan. But he was already the clan lord in this life. He had the financial power of the entire Mo clan as his backing. So, how could Mo Tianji not be like a tiger that had grown wings? Just like now. The matter of Chu Yang killing the remaining members of the O clan hadn't happened for a long time. But the information had already been placed on Mo Tianji's desk. The fourth news is that Ao Mengyun of the Ao clan had led a group of people to intercept Dong Wuxiang. But Dong Wuxiang had forced his way out. It is said that Dong Wuxiang's domineering aura had chilled Ao Mengyun's courage. The Black Devil had led a group of assassins to intercept Dong Wuxiang. But there was no news of them after they went out. There was no way to find out whether they had intercepted or not. Mo Tianji closed the file. He was somewhat worried as he wrinkled his brows. Chu Yang calmly listened. His originally relaxed and smiling face had finally turned serious. Intercepting and killing wasn't scary. What was scary was assassination. Chu Yang was confident that each of his brothers would be able to fight fair and square. In fact, they would be able to escape even if they couldn't beat the enemy. Chu Yang hadn't made his brothers carry 2,000 kilograms of weight on their backs for thousands of miles for nothing. At this point, Chu Yang felt that his brothers were probably the best in the three heavens when it came to speed and stamina. Not many people could catch up with them once they started to run. But they were most afraid of assassination plots. This was especially true for an assassination clan like the Black Devil clan. Dong Wuxiang would rather break than bend if they wanted to assassinate him. So, the situation wouldn't be optimistic. Both of them looked at each other and saw the same worry in each other's eyes. Heaven helps the worthy. Mo Tianji took a deep breath. The fifth news is that Ao Qingyun and Ao Fengyun tried to kill Gu Duxing twice. Gu Duxing killed them and easily escaped. Ao Fengyun and Ao Qingyun are currently heading towards the Gu clan. Tu Qianhao led the experts of the clan to intercept Gu Duxing. Tu Qianhao and Gu Duxing had a one-on-one battle. Tu Qianhao died under Gu Duxing's sword. The original clan lord of the Gu clan, Gu Yunlan, abdicated. Young clan lord Gu Duxing became the head of the clan. There was a change of dynasty. Gu Duxing announced his engagement with Gu Miaoling. Mo Tianji carefully placed the notes on the desk. Then he put them in 5 separate bags. He didn't hear Chu Yang speak for a long time. So he turned his head to look. He was surprised and asked, "What happened to you?" Chu Yang still hadn't woken up from the shock. Tu Qianhao and Gu Duxing had a one-on-one battle. Tu Qianhao died under Gu Duxing's sword. These words had given Chu Yang an incomparable shock. He had never dreamed that Tu Qianhao would die. Moreover, he had died at Gu Duxing's hands. Meng Luo had been framed by him. O Duxiao had died at his hands. Now even Tu Qianhao had died. 1/4 of them had died. Tu Qianhao had left a deep impression on Chu Yang. This man had a straightforward and carefree appearance. But he was very meticulous. He could be more forthright than anyone else when he was forthright. But he could be more narrow-minded than anyone else when he was narrow-minded. It was easy for him to make friends. But it was also easy for him to hold grudges. Sometimes it was hard to avoid being despicable. But he was open and aboveboard most of the time. Chu Yang and Tu Qianhao hadn't crossed paths in his previous life. Or, it could be said that Chu Yang hadn't been qualified to cross paths with Tu Qianhao in his previous life. They didn't have any friendship in this life. However, Chuyang still felt that it was a pity. That was because he knew that Tu Qianhao would create an unparalleled consummate skill in the future. Unruffled heavenly book. Unruffled swordsmanship, unruffled footwork, unruffled mental cultivation method. These were the most ingenious and miraculous divine techniques in the entire heavenly layer. Tu Qianhao hadn't been very outstanding in the beginning. But, he had suddenly advanced by leaps and bounds after he had created the unruffled swordsmanship. In fact, he had almost replaced Ao Xie Yun and Gu Duxing, who had been at the peak of the younger generation of the three heavens. Tu Qianhao's cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds until Chu Yang's death. Therefore, the unruffled heavenly book had been hailed as the #1 scripture in the three heavens. Chuyang had always been curious. What kind of martial technique could have such power? But, Tu Qianhao is dead. Moreover, he died young. Doesn't that mean that the unruffled heavenly book will never appear in the world again? Chuyang immediately sucked in cold air in pity. What's wrong? Mo Tianji asked. Tu Qianhao is dead. Chuyang sighed. He was as famous as you. He suddenly remembered that this guy in front of him was one of the 12 influential figures, Poison Spirit Tianji, Li Xiongtu, and Tianji. Moreover, this guy was famous for his shrewdness and resourcefulness. He had many tricks up his sleeve. He was two-faced, cunning, strange, and he was the epitome of conspiracy and craftiness. He was the synonym of sinister and the spokesperson of conspiracy. Chuyang couldn't help but think, I reckon this guy will live for a long time. A scourge lives for 1,000 years. As famous as me? Mo Tianji was startled. He was at a loss. When did he become as famous as me? Chapter 625. Mo Tianji thought for a while. Then he slowly walked out and ordered, inform them to keep a close eye on the Black Devil clan. Pay close attention to Dong Wushang and Luo Kedi. Also, keep an eye on GMO, pass it on quickly. He turned around and asked Chuyang, do you have anything to add? Chuyang thought for a long time and said, I have nothing to say. Until now, this is only an internal matter of their clans. I can't interfere. He paused. His face was serious as he pondered. His two sword-like eyebrows slanted. His tone was calm as he said word by word, if anything happens to Dong Wushang and Luo Kedi, then I will personally exterminate the Dong clan and Luo clan, without leaving a single one alive. Mo Tianji was shocked. From Chu Yang's seemingly ordinary words, he could hear boundless murderous intent and the determination to perish together with Chuyang at all costs. He didn't mention the Black Devil clan, Zhao clan, or Li clan. Instead, he mentioned the Dong clan and Luo clan. This showed that Chuyang was most worried about the same thing as him. If these two died at the hands of the Black Devil clan or other clans, it would be justified. If I want to kill you, you will kill me. If I die, I will take revenge. There was no complaint. But if it happened because of a clan's internal conflict, then the Dong clan and Luo clan, they're your clans when they are alive. I can't participate in your clan's internal affairs. My brother won't let me interfere. But if they die because of this, then only my brother will be left. Mo Tianji clearly felt that if something happened to Luo Kedi and Dong Wushang, then Chuyang would not hesitate to kill the Dong clan and Luo clan. There would be absolutely no consideration for their feelings. So he went out again and gave a few more orders. In an instant, the sound of wings flapping was heard everywhere in the Mo clan. Countless invisible falcons soared into the sky. At the same time, 4 groups of horses rushed out like a hurricane. Chu Yang's face was cold as he sat down quietly. His face was like iron. Mo Tianji sighed. He looked at Chu Yang's face but didn't say anything in the end. He knew that it was useless to say anything at this moment. Thousands of words. Chu Yang could explode with just one piece of information. I don't care about Jianghu plans. I don't care about the clan's honor or disgrace. I don't care who they are. Chu Yang insipidly said, but I will make whoever hurts my brothers pay the price. He smiled gently and said hoarsely, 10 million times the price. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Mo Tianji's face. Then he said in a low voice, Brother Mo, I need your real information during this period of time. Chu Yang had especially emphasized the word real. His eyes were burning and Mo Tianji's face even felt a burning pain. Okay. When Mo Tianji said this word, he thought for a long time. Although it was only one word, it was extremely difficult for him to say it. He clearly understood the meaning and weight of Chu Yang's word, truth. The atmosphere was silent and oppressive. The two of them sat facing each other and neither of them spoke. Dong clan. In the conference hall. It was empty. There was only one person inside. Dong Wu Lei tightly wrinkled his brows. He sat on the armchair with a heavy look on his face. He was conflicted and struggling. Not doing it? After returning, he had been hesitant and conflicted. He had seen time pass little by little. But he still hadn't made up his mind. His sharp gaze would suddenly fall on the chair that represented the head of the family, lingering there for a long time. Every time it happened, his gaze would be scorching and predatory. Suddenly, it would fall on the chair that represented Dong Wuxiang opposite him. At this time his gaze was complicated, contradictory, and somewhat doting. His mind was also in a fierce struggle. Kill him. He's your younger brother. But he's your competitor. A real man can't be soft-hearted in his life. He can't be soft-hearted. You must know that you'll be consigned to eternal damnation if you're pulled down from the position of the clan's successor. You can't kill him. He's your competitor. But he's also your younger brother. He's connected by blood. He's your brother. Wouldn't you be worse than a dog or a pig if you kill your younger brother for power? Beads of sweat rolled down Dong Wu Lei's forehead. Young lord, this is a critical moment. You must make a decision at this critical moment. Second young master is already a saber emperor. He's far more powerful than you. The elders will support him once he returns to the clan even if he doesn't have any ambitions. 10.5-year-old saber emperor. Young lord, you must understand the meaning of this. This was the voice of the loyal and devoted bodyguard resounding in his mind. Big brother, I know that you have deep brotherly affection. But, have you thought about our children's future if you lose your power? They'll forever lose the opportunity to climb to glory because of your soft-heartedness. And their grandchildren will become the hired thugs and slaves of the Dong clan. Do you have the heart to do that? These were the words of his wife. His wife's eyes were filled with tears when she said these words. Dong Wu Lei tightly closed his eyes. Don't force me. Don't force me. Dong Wu Lei whispered in a low and painful voice. The muscles on his face twitched. He had been thinking about this for several days. He felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles every time he saw his wife's resentful gaze. Therefore he had decided to hide here. He was like an ostrich. He would hide and close his eyes when he was forced to the point that he had no other choice. But a series of scenes would appear in front of his eyes. Big brother, you're so powerful. When can I be as powerful as you? This was the scene of Wuxiang when he was 4 or 5 years old. His face was full of worship. My big brother is the most powerful. This was the scene of Wuxiang when he was 7 years old. He had a fight with some people. Several children had held him down and beaten him up. Dong Wuxiang had gone forward to beat those guys up. Wuxiang's eyes were still filled with tears when he proudly announced this. Wow, this little guy peed on me again. This was the scene of Dong Wuxiang's son being born. Wuxiang was wild with joy. He would run to Dong Wu's room every day. Even his wife couldn't drive him out. Then he would hold the child and play with him every day. He would spoil him even more than his father. Big brother, I want to go out and explore. Tell me, where should I go? This was what Wuxiang had said to Dong Wuxiang when he had first shown that his martial arts talent was better than Dong Wuxiang's. Songlan Battlefront. Dong Wu Lei had replied at that time. Songlan Battlefront. Dong Wu Lei closed his eyes and murmured these words again. He seemed to be recalling the scene of the two brothers high-fiving each other at the door. Big brother, don't worry. I will always be your brother. This was what Wuxiang had said under infinite pressure when Dong Wuxiang had become suspicious of him. The expression in his eyes when he had said these words was so sincere and so loyal. But it was also so sad. Big brother. I want to go out and play with big brother. This was what Wuxiang had said to Dong Wuxiang at Mt Dingjun. You don't need to inform me if something happens to the clan. Dong Wu Lei had looked at the majestic back of his younger brother as he left in a desolate manner. He had wanted to call his brother back countless times and hold him in his arms. That's because he knew what Wuxiang had meant. You are afraid that I will compete with you. So I will leave the clan. I won't have the slightest complaint even if you take over the position of clan lord during this time. In fact, I will feel relieved. Alas. Dong Wu Lei slowly opened his eyes. He didn't know when he had started to cry. Drag it out until second brother comes back. I don't know anything. But Dong Wu Lei eventually made up his mind. But this determination was so fragile that even he felt fragile. Wu Lei, you are crying? A deep and slow voice was heard. Dong Wu Lei turned his head and saw his father Dong Qigong slowly walking into the hall. Father. Dong Wu Lei wiped his eyes. He then stood up and respectfully greeted him. Dong Qigong sighed. He arrived in front of Dong Wulei and carefully looked at him. Then he said in a deep voice, I know that you are upset and conflicted in your heart. So I came to take a look. Father. Dong Wulei's heart heavily jumped. Dong Qigong sighed. He then sat down beside Dong Wulei. He didn't speak for a long time. After a while he said in a deep voice, You are under a lot of pressure. I understand this. I also went through this in the past. It's not easy to be the clan lord, especially for a clan like ours. The entire clan will decline if the clan lord is incompetent. So one must be vicious and merciless. But one must also be brave and courageous. It's easy to say. But how many people can actually do it? I understand your mood. Dong Qigong stood up and patted his son's shoulder. You are my flesh and blood. You are my son. I, as your father, will support you no matter what you choose. He quietly walked out after he had finished speaking. He walked to the door and then stood there. He didn't speak for a long time. His figure blocked the sunlight that was shining into the hall. The entire hall was filled with his shadow. He stood there for a while. Then he finally said in a deep voice, Wulei. I named you Wulei because I hoped that you would never have any worries in your life. And you would never shed tears. And I hope that Wu Shang won't suffer the slightest harm in his life. Your mother hasn't come to see you these days. That's because she is praying for her 2 sons in the Buddha Hall. She has been kneeling for 3 days. Wu Shang isn't her biological son. Wu Shang's mother died after giving birth to him. Your mother has always raised him as her biological son. You know this matter. Your mother and I hope that you 2 brothers won't have any injuries in your life. And you won't have any tears in your life. Dong Wulei's entire body shook. Then tears suddenly streamed down his face. He curled up on the ground. It seemed as if he had been thrown naked in the cold. He was shivering incessantly. He thought of his mother's kind eyes. They seemed to be looking at him with pleading eyes. They seemed to be filled with faint despair. Wouldn't it be tantamount to killing my mother's heart if I were to kill my second brother? Father looks strong. But I'm afraid that half of his heart will die. Dong Qigong silently walked out after he had finished speaking. The sunlight shone in. Dong Wulei chased after him and shouted, Father! Dong Qigong stood in the distance. He seemed to have sighed. Dong Wulei chased after him. He wanted to say something but hesitated. Dong Qigong turned his head and looked at him. There was a complicated look in his eyes. He softly said, Your people are gone. Dong Qigong didn't look back after he had finished speaking. Your people are gone? Dong Wulei repeated in a murmur. It seemed as if he was asking himself. But then his complexion changed. Then he turned around and rushed towards his small courtyard. This is the second watch. I've been writing since I got up. It's only the second watch now. I'm ashamed. I'm going to eat something first. Damn it. My heart is in a mess today. I don't feel hungry. I didn't notice anything after I picked up the phone. Just now, when I went to the toilet, I touched my pants out of habit. But I couldn't find the zipper. I was confused. Then I carefully touched my pants and found that the pocket of my jeans was on my front thigh. It turned out that I was wearing it the wrong way. Damn it, everyone is very supportive. I'm very comforted. I'm very happy. I'll continue writing after I finish eating. There will be more updates tonight. Finally, I'm calling for official subscriptions. I want to say that we've tried our best. But our official subscriptions are too far away. Monthly votes come from subscriptions. Our foundation is too thin. I like Soaring Wind. I like the brothers and sisters who are proud of the world. I hope to get your help. 24 subscriptions. Only 5,000. Compared to the tens of thousands of subscriptions of the great gods, the difference is too big. I'll say something crazy. With our votes and cohesion, I believe that not many people would dare to say that they are number 1. I dare to say that as long as you give me 1,000 subscriptions, I can laugh proudly in the martial world. I can truly be proud of the world. Are you willing to accompany us to be proud of the world? Chapter 626. The World Defying the Heavens, Wind Dominates the World. If you like this work, please vote for it or collect it. Don't know how to vote or collect it? Please read this post. Let's dance with the wind and clouds and the world defying the heavens. Let's read this magnificent chapter together. Bang! Dong Wulei kicked open the door of the small courtyard and shattered it. Then he rushed in with large strides. Yushio was coaxing the child to eat in the room. She hurriedly got up when she heard the sound. She didn't have time to go out to check when she saw the bedroom door shatter with a bang. Dong Wu Lei angrily rushed in. The child was more than 3 years old. He was so scared that he burst into tears. "What are you doing? You scared the child to tears." Yu Xiu's long and shapely eyebrows rose as she glared at him. "Someone come." Dong Wu Lei violently roared, "Take the young master out. I have something to say to madam." The maid rolled and crawled in. She was about to take the child when Yu Xiu opened her hands to stop her. "What are you doing?" "Shut up." Slap. Dong Wu Lei raised his hand and slapped her face. She was sent flying by the slap. Her hair was in a mess and she fell to the ground. Her delicate and pretty face had turned blue and purple. The maid was scared out of her wits. She quivered and began to tremble. "Why aren't you taking the young master out? Do you want to die?" Dong Wu Lei turned around and glared at her. He then roared loudly. The entire room shook and dust rustled down. The maid trembled. She hastily picked up the child and rushed out as if she was fleeing for her life. "You dare to hit me? You hit me?" Yu Xiu looked at her husband in disbelief. She then suddenly pounced on him like a mad tiger. "I broke my heart for you. I gave birth to your children. I gave everything for you. Dong Wu Lei, you hit me?" Slap. Another slap landed on the other side of her face. Dong Wu Lei's eyes flashed wildly with killing intent. He then said in a low and deep voice, "Sit down. Otherwise I will kill you." His voice was low and deep as usual, but it was full of repressed fury. That murderous intention that was on the verge of bursting out couldn't be concealed. Yu Xiu's eyes widened in horror. She couldn't believe it. She caressed her face and powerlessly sat down on the ground. "First, you broke your heart for me. But you don't need to worry about me. You shouldn't worry. Secondly, if you don't bear children for me, then who do you want to bear children for? Thirdly, you've given up everything for me, but I still haven't seen the color of your heart." Dong Wu lay dragged over a chair and slowly sat down. His complexion looked like iron. "What have you done?" Dong Wu Lei asked in a low voice. A trace of panic flashed through Yu Xiu's eyes as she quibbled, "I didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. I didn't do anything." Dong Wu Lei suddenly got up when he heard these words. Then he picked up the chair that he had been sitting on without any hesitation, and smashed it on his wife's head. The sandalwood chair shattered with a crashing sound, and his face was covered in blood. Yu Xiu also had the strength of a revered martial artist. But she was caught off guard. Dong Wu Lei hadn't poured his vitality into her attack. So her face was still dripping with blood. Dong Wu Lei dragged over another chair, and sat down after a rumbling sound was heard. Then he insipidly said, "Speak, what did you do?" Yu Xiu was really scared now. She could feel that Dong Wu Lei would have beaten her to death if she hadn't said anything. She stammered and kept glancing towards the door. "I've given up. Even my father and mother can't enter my small courtyard now." Dong Wu Lei stooped down and looked at her intently. He then said word by word, "Your maternal family will come to pay their respects to you the day after tomorrow if you don't speak." His eyes flashed with coldness and ruthlessness. He took out a piece of tissue and gently wiped the blood on his wife's face. Then he insipidly said, "Your maternal family won't dare to do anything to me. Don't think that your maternal family is very strong. Moreover, I can marry another woman the next day after your funeral. Don't think that you're the only woman in this world. And don't think that it's so easy to be the wife of the clan lord of my Dong clan. I haven't taken a concubine yet. People who don't know how to cherish things won't get anything. I will slaughter your maternal family if something happens to my second brother. Do you believe me?" Yu Xiu opened her eyes wide in horror. Dong Wu Lei wiped the blood on her face and softly said, "Woman, remember this. Don't meddle in things that you shouldn't meddle in. Do you understand?" He threw the tissue on the ground and wiped his hands. Then he pinched Yu Xiu's throat and softly said, "I like you very much. So I'm giving you the value of my love. I'm also willing to endure and make you happy. But you have to remember that all of this is because I like you. You can be like this because I like you. You'll be like this if I don't like you." His fingers slowly tightened like iron pliers. He then slowly said, "Don't make me dislike you." Yu Xiu's throat was pinched by him. She felt that it was difficult to breathe. In fact, it seemed as if she would suffocate the next moment. Her pretty eyes slowly bulged out. They were filled with a pitiful look. Dong Wu Lei suddenly loosened his grip when she wouldn't be able to endure the suffocation, and would die the next moment. Yu Xiu fell to the ground and sat down. She stroked her throat with her hands and gasped for breath. Her eyes revealed an expression of relief, but also extreme fear. Do you still want me to ask? Dong Wu Lei's eyes were as sharp as knives. He suddenly shouted like a thunderbolt, "Go! Kneel down and speak." No, no. Yu Xiu knelt down in front of her husband with a plop. I'll speak. I'll tell you everything. I'm not reconciled. Tell me your arrangements directly. Dong Wushang's eyes became colder and colder. It was that day when the people of the Black Devil clan found you, Qingze. Qingze came to me. I made the arrangements. Then, it just so happened that everyone on our side was in danger. They were deeply afraid that your position wouldn't be guaranteed, so there are people of the Black Devil clan? Dong Wu Lei's eyes opened wide in fury. Your Yu clan is colluding with the Black Devil clan? You colluded with the enemy to frame my younger brother? Tell me the specific plan. Where is it? When did it start? How many people went there? How many people of the Black Devil clan? How many people of the Yu clan? How many people on our side? Dong Wu Lei asked again and again. It has been 2 days, at the Broken Soul Cliff 250 kilometers away. 10 people from my clan have gone there. Each of them is a king-level expert and an emperor-level expert. On our side, 100 or so people have gone there. 30 king-level experts and 5 emperor-level experts. Second Great Elder also seems to be people of the Black Devil clan. I don't know. Yu Xiu had clearly sensed the arrival of a deadly crisis. So she knelt on the ground and spoke very quickly. The Broken Soul Cliff is the only way to go. It's coming from the direction of Wushang. So there's no way to go around it. In other words, there are at least 400 to 500 people at the Broken Soul Cliff to intercept him. And there's an 8th grade Emperor-level Great Elder among them. There's also the deceit of his relatives. There's also a deliberate and unintentional assassination. Moreover, the super assassins of the Black Devil clan are hiding in the dark. Dong Wu Lei muttered. Then his eyes suddenly became desperate. It has been 2 days. 2 days. Wushang is in danger. He suddenly felt an overwhelming pain in his heart. Big brother, the Dong clan is made of iron with us here. I will properly assist you. We 2 brothers will certainly make our Dong clan glorious. Dong Wushang's face was shining. My big brother is the best. Dong Wushang's face was full of worship. Big brother, Dong Wu Lei faced upwards and roared. Then he suddenly stood up and walked out without turning his head. Where are you going? Yu Xiu shouted in a hoarse voice. Don't go. You'll die with him. Don't go. Dong Wu Lei stopped at the door. But he didn't turn his head. I'm not that stupid. I won't die if Wushang is dead. Because I want to keep my life. You must kneel at the door and apologize to my brother if he comes back safely. Admit your mistake. You will die if my brother doesn't come back alive. Your entire clan will die. I, Dong Wu Lei, swear in the name of 8 generations of ancestors and 8 generations of descendants. Yu Xiu pray? Dong Wushang is the younger brother of I, Dong Wu Lei. I scolded him, I hit him, I was afraid of him, I was jealous of him. I was jealous of him. I was afraid that he would take my position. I would even expel him from the clan. I would even kill him if he did something wrong. Anything is fine. Because I'm his elder brother. We have the same father. This is a matter between us brothers. Who do you think you are? What qualifications do you have to get involved in this? Did I give you face? I can kill him. But I'll kill you if you dare to lay a finger on him. Dong Wu Lei's body rolled out like a gale. Then a thunderous sound was heard. Then the sound of horses' hoofs echoed like a storm. The sound of horses' hoofs was like thunder. They rushed out of the small courtyard and rushed out of the Dong clan's gate. They rolled away and left only a trail of dust on the road. In the bedroom, Yu Xiu sat down on the ground in a daze. Her hair was disheveled and her face was covered with blood. Her graceful and luxurious appearance from a moment ago had disappeared. She forced a smile after a long time. She admitted that she didn't understand Dong Wu Lei. Or she didn't understand men. Dong Wu Lei was often worried about Dong Wushang's rise. He was often anxious. He would toss and turn in bed every night. He wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully. He would always feel as if there was a thorn in his back. Sometimes he would get drunk and would curse him in anger. Dong Wu Lei believed that his second brother Dong Wushang was a formidable rival for the clan's power. He was also the biggest threat. There were too many possibilities that Dong Wushang would take his place after his rise. Therefore he was deeply afraid. In fact, he was even jealous. All of this had given Yu Xiu a hint. Dong Wulei wanted to get rid of Dong Wuxiang. However, Dong Wulei couldn't say it. Yuxiu was his wife. So, she had to solve this difficult problem for him. Dong Wulei had been hiding in the clan's hall for the past few days. It seemed as if he was making time and space for himself to make arrangements and plans. Therefore, Yuxiu had launched this attack without any hesitation. But she had never dreamt that it would turn out like this. She had originally thought that Dong Wulei would pretend to fly into a rage at most. Then he would admit his mistake and would kneel in front of the ancestral tablets in an aggrieved manner for a few days. Then this matter would be over. However, Dong Wulei's reaction was so intense that it was bloody. This was completely different from what she had expected. It was poles apart. Perhaps it was as Dong Wulei had said, "I can do anything to my younger brother. But you can't do anything. I can kill him. But I will take revenge for him if you dare to lay a finger on him. I will vent his anger for him. Because he is my younger brother." I'm writing very slowly today, but I will continue to work hard. The next update will be very late. Please support me with your monthly votes. Thank you. Chapter 627. Yuxiu finally leaned on the bed and cried bitterly. It is said that a woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. But how many people in the world can understand a man's heart? Especially a man like Dong Wulei. His personality was contradictory and extreme. Who could understand him? Beating a woman didn't seem like a real man's behavior. But a real man would disregard everything for his brother. Dong Wulei whipped his horse and galloped wildly. He was burning with anxiety. A road led straight to the end of the world. He was galloping alone on his horse. His destination was the Broken Soul Cliff. "Wuxiang, you must walk slowly. You must wait for me." Dong Wuxiang had only been intercepted by Ao Mengyun of the Ao clan along the way. Dong Wuxiang had forcefully rushed past them. He had a rough appearance, but he had the overall situation in his heart. He knew that this wasn't the time to fight to the death with the Ao clan. Therefore he hadn't killed anyone. He had only relied on the black saber's sharpness and weight to open a path for himself. Then he had swaggered away. He had gone straight for 3,000 miles. And he hadn't been intercepted a second time. Dong Wuxiang muttered to himself because of this tranquility. How can it be so tranquil? Could it be that no one has noticed me? He looked at the familiar scenery in front of him. He was getting closer and closer to the territory of the Dong clan. The Broken Soul Cliff would be 300 miles ahead. He was less than 1,000 miles away from his home. Dong Wuxiang hesitated and stopped his footsteps. Then he made a draft in his heart. This would be his last and most sincere effort to win back his elder brother. "Big brother, I will withdraw from the clan. I will still be a member of the Dong clan. But I won't participate in any clan disputes. I've come back today to help the clan get through this difficult time. But I will ask my father to resign after this. I will accompany my big brother from now on. And we will rush to the heavens. I will leave the Dong clan to you, big brother. But I will rush back as soon as the clan needs me. And I will fight for our clan to the end." Dong Wuxiang shook his head. "It seems a little stiff. But how should I say this? The gap between us brothers has become bigger and bigger these years. Big brother's loyal subordinates look at me as if they are looking at an enemy. Big brother, you don't know how much I miss the days when we brothers were as close as one. I want to return to those days." Dong Wuxiang looked ahead worriedly. At this moment he longed to go home, but he was also afraid of going home. Home was so warm yet so far away. After resting for a while, Dong Wuxiang set off again. This time he did not hesitate. The Broken Soul Cliff was up ahead. The Dong clan's territory would be beyond the Broken Soul Cliff. And the Broken Soul Cliff was the best place for an ambush. Only a few people could walk side by side through the dense forest on both sides of the road. Dong Wuxiang knew that if someone wanted to deal with him, they would definitely be there. It might be the O clan's alliance, or it might be the Ao clan, or it might be my own clan. However, he strode forward like a shooting star without the slightest hesitation. I've already hesitated and considered it. But now, no matter what lies ahead, I have to go through it. Regardless of whether it was a mountain of blades, a sea of flames, or a broken heart, he had to face what he had to face. Dong Wuxiang strode forward, but he was unconsciously biting his lips. The distance of 300 miles was gradually left behind by him. Dong Wuxiang was startled when he turned around the foot of the mountain. At the foot of the Breaking Soul Cliff in front, there was a person standing upright. Behind him, there were dozens of people sitting and waiting. When they saw Dong Wuxiang's return, They immediately stood up. Second young master is back. Dong Wuxiang felt somewhat relieved. They were all Dong clan's people. Most of them were Big Brother's people. But the second senior elder was also among them. He doesn't like me, but he won't be so despicable with his status, right? Moreover, these people are smiling. The second senior elder's face is still ice cold. But he has always been like this. So it's not a big deal. The only strange thing is, why are they here? Have they come to greet me? Dong Wuxiang suddenly felt excited as he looked at the smiling faces in front of him. He quickly walked forward. Second senior elder, you've had a hard journey. A first-grade emperor-level expert welcomed him with a cheerful smile. The situation in the three heavens is dangerous now. We have to be on guard. And we know that the Black Devil wants to ambush you. You've just been intercepted by the AO clan. So we've calculated the time and waited here. He smiled. This broken soul cliff is a natural place for ambushes. We have to be on guard. Dong Wuxiang suddenly felt relieved. So that's how it is. He had a forthright and generous personality. So he immediately smiled and said, this is nothing. I can't thank you enough. Oh, by the way, Big Brother didn't come? The Grand Duke is preparing a banquet and decorating the courtyard in the clan. He's welcoming the return of the second senior elder. That emperor-level expert had an embarrassed look on his face. He said in a low voice, to be honest, the Grand Duke was very angry. He was a little, In fact, even people like us were very upset. Second senior elder, please don't blame us. Cough cough. But then the Grand Duke said, after all, you're my younger brother. So he asked us to come and greet you. At this point, Dong Wuxiang was completely at ease. For him to be able to say these words, it could be considered as him being frank and sincere. It seems that Big Brother has really thought it through. He couldn't help but sigh. Alas, it's not easy for Big Brother. That emperor-level expert walked over with Dong Wuxiang in his arms. He then said, second young master, you must be careful. The second senior elder has come forward to greet you. Well, you know his temper. Cough cough. Of course. Dong Wuxiang laughed out loud and walked forward. He then slowly walked into the crowd. The Dong clan had 3 senior elders. The senior elder in front of him was the second one. His name was Du Lufeng. He was nearly 100 years old. A strange look flashed through Du Lufeng's eyes when he saw Dong Wuxiang walking over. He then insipidly said, second young master, I've heard that your cultivation has reached first-grade Saber Emperor? Everyone seemed somewhat nervous when they heard this question. They pricked up their ears and opened their eyes wide as they looked at Dong Wuxiang. Yes, I was lucky enough to break through to first-grade Saber Emperor. Dong Wuxiang smiled modestly and said, I've made second elder laugh. Du Lufeng looked at Dong Wuxiang with a strange look in his eyes. He then said, second young master, you're 10 years old this year, right? Dong Wuxiang rubbed his head and replied with a smile, 10.5 years old. I'll be 20 years old in half a year. Du Lufeng let out a long O sound. Then he said, was the journey peaceful? Dong Wuxiang smiled contemptuously and said, there were only a few jumping clowns. They weren't worth mentioning. Jumping clowns? Du Lufeng's eyebrows twitched. He reluctantly pulled out a smile and said, second young master has grown up. Let's go. Everyone in the clan is anxiously waiting for us. Du Lufeng smiled. Then he resumed his expressionless face. Dong Wuxiang smiled and walked into the crowd. People from all directions also surrounded him with smiles on their faces, surrounding him in the middle. Du Lufeng tightly wrinkled his brows. He then turned around and silently walked forward. One would have seen his complexion in a very complicated manner if they had seen him from the front. His eyes were full of contradictions. 10.5 years old emperor-level expert. Saber Emperor. What kind of potential did he have? How could an old man like him, who had climbed to the 8th grade of emperor-level expert and over 100 years old, not understand? However, he couldn't consider this at the moment. Jianghu was in chaos right now. The Dong clan couldn't withstand a civil war. The Dong clan would have likely been destroyed in this great tide of Jianghu if these two brothers were to fight at this time. Dong Wuxiang wouldn't have a choice even if he didn't fight for it. That was because the eldest brother and the third brother had already made up their minds to push Dong Wuxiang onto the throne of the clan lord. Wasn't the Mo clan's Mo Tianyun and Mo Tianji brothers a good example? The Mo clan's strength had dropped by almost half after the last fratricide between the two brothers. The Mo clan wasn't as big as the Dong clan. But the ancestors of the Mo clan weren't weak either. But how could the prosperity of the clan be entrusted to a single person? Good martial arts and high cultivation aren't necessarily qualified to be the clan lord, right? Du Lu Feng had quarreled with the eldest brother and the third brother more than 100 times on this point. But they were obstinate in their own ways. Therefore he had no choice but to personally take action today. However, he hesitated at the last moment. Do I really have to kill a young expert with boundless future prospects? This would have been a great loss to the clan. In fact, it could have been our hope to rush to the upper three heavens in the future. Du Lu Feng's face was calm and collected. He frowned as he silently hurried on ahead. Senior Elder, an emperor-level expert anxiously called out. It seemed as if he was reminding or urging him. He was obviously anxious when he saw that Du Lu Feng was somewhat hesitant. Forget it. Du Lu Feng sighed in his heart. He suddenly stopped and coldly shouted, "Attack!" The 8 people who were closest to Dong Wuxiang immediately attacked as soon as he gave the order. Dong Wuxiang was walking in the middle of the group. He was in the middle of the 40 to 50 people. He was happily walking forward with the group of the clan when he suddenly felt a burst of palpitations. It seemed as if a great crisis had suddenly struck his body. He couldn't help but subconsciously twist his body. And a sharp pain spread from every part of his body at the same time. The 8 people who were too close to Dong Wuxiang heard the order. But they didn't have enough time to draw their swords. Moreover, swords and sabers would make a sound. So they simply used their fists and feet. And all of them heavily hit Dong Wuxiang's body at the same time. They hit his back, legs, waist, chest, nape, lower abdomen, dantian, and his temples. Dong Wuxiang was caught off guard. He suddenly suffered a fatal attack. He angrily screamed. His tall and sturdy body was sent flying like a huge gunny sack. Cracking sounds echoed in midair. It was unknown how many bones in his body had been broken. He was bleeding from his 7 orifices. His vision was almost blurred. He only felt that every part of his body was in heart-wrenching pain. Dong Wuxiang's body fell to the ground with a puff sound. And a splendid blood splashed on the ground. However, he angrily turned over and jumped up. He felt that his right leg had gone soft when he fell to the ground. And he nearly fell down. He hastily used his left leg to support his body. Only then did he realize that his right leg had been broken. His right arm, which he had used to wield the saber, hung down softly. His shoulder had been shattered. 8 experts had attacked Dong Wuxiang at the same time. He had been caught off guard and had sustained injuries. He didn't have the slightest ability to counterattack. In fact, he didn't even have the ability to escape. Dong Wuxiang's entire body was madly gushing with blood. His eyes were bleeding as he looked at these people in front of him. His eyes were filled with sorrow. He muttered, "So it's still like this? Big brother, has he really attacked me? Has he really attacked me?" Blood continuously gushed out of his mouth as he spoke. Dong Wuxiang could clearly feel that his heart was splitting into pieces. Compared to the pain on his body, the pain in his heart was 10,000 times worse. Chapter 628. Dong Wuxiang wasn't unguarded. He had always been on guard. However, he hadn't been on guard when things had come to a head. He had been caught completely off guard. That was because his elder brother's people had shown good intentions. So he had let down his guard. Moreover, he had deliberately let himself let down his guard. No one knew how much Dong Wuxiang valued this brotherly affection. He had grown up together with his elder brother. He had always respected and worshipped him. He had always taken care of him in every possible way. He had spoiled him in every possible way. But he had turned against him. So one could well imagine how sad and disappointed he was. Now, his elder brother had finally shown signs of reconciliation. He had shown good intentions. Dong Wuxiang would rather believe that this was true. He had longed to return to the environment of brotherly love. So, he hadn't hesitated to gamble with his own safety. Unfortunately, he had lost the gamble. His body was injured in many places. Someone else wouldn't have been able to stand up if they had been in his place. But he was still standing. He was standing on one leg. His entire body was bleeding profusely. But he was still standing straight. He was still mighty and majestic. Only the sadness and disappointment in his eyes had added a bit of desolate elegance to his proud figure. Everyone didn't dare to meet his gaze. So they turned their heads away one after another. Dong Wuxiang smiled. It was a miserable smile. His heart had completely died at this point. He suddenly recalled that Chu Yang had repeatedly told him before he had left, "Wuxiang, you must be careful. Wuxiang, you must be careful." Big brother had expected this. So he had been reminding him. But he hadn't said it clearly. That's because he couldn't say it clearly. After all, Dong Wulei was his elder brother. His biological elder brother. It would have been hard to avoid sowing dissension if Big Brother had said it at that time. But his repeated reminders were tantamount to saying, "Be careful of your elder brother." Dong Wuxiang had also sensed it. But he had still foolishly chosen to believe it when things had come to a head. "Second Master, we also didn't want to do this." Du Lu Feng coughed twice. He then said somewhat guiltily, "But our Dong clan is swaying in the wind and rain at this time. We can't withstand another big storm." "I understand." Dong Wuxiang nodded slowly. The look in his eyes changed from confusion and despair to heartache and pain. He was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. But if one were to look closely at his eyes, one would be shocked to discover that his gaze was gradually deepening, gradually condensing, and gradually transforming into a kind of cruelty. He understood. He really understood. The Dong clan only needed one successor. Just like the throne of the royal family, there would always be only one seat. If Dong Wuxiang was a little mediocre, it wouldn't be a big deal. But to be so outstanding, it was unnecessary. Moreover, it was a potential crisis that could lead to the division of the family. Dong Wuxiang's body swayed, and his eyes suddenly turned into the color of the black saber. He looked up at the sky and murmured, "Everyone in the world pursues love, but who would have thought that this world is heartless? Perhaps it's because this world is filled with too much ruthlessness that there are so many legends about love." Suddenly, a burst of intense saber light shot out from his body. Brilliant and dazzling. Enlightenment. The second senior elder looked at each other in amazement. He clearly understood what had happened to Dong Wuxiang at this moment with his cultivation and insight. He hadn't expected that Dong Wuxiang's innate talent would be so unimaginable. His mind had been stimulated in such a desperate situation, but he had still managed to gain enlightenment at such a time. How can a saber strike without causing any injury be considered high? Who can endure the endless world of mortals? Drifting in the Jianghu, I'll become a heartless saber from now on. Dong Wuxiang looked up to the sky and laughed heartily. He laughed out loud because of the endless grief and indignation in his heart. Suddenly, he let out a long and loud shout, and slowly recited these lines of a poem. Perhaps this wasn't a poem, but a saber art. A saber art that belonged exclusively to Dong Wuxiang. Dong Wuxiang had suddenly become a Buddha when his body and mind had been beaten black and blue. He had comprehended the second level of the Saber Emperor realm. His entire body was emitting intense saber energy. The look in his eyes was becoming increasingly cruel, increasingly calm, and increasingly heartless. Dong Wuxiang had comprehended the saber without injury when he was a first-grade Saber Emperor. But his second-grade Saber Emperor had comprehended the saber without injury. Saber strikes without causing any injury from now on. Saber strikes without emotion. His body issued pi-pi-pa-pa sounds. The broken bones in his chest suddenly recovered miraculously. He stretched out his left hand and suddenly turned his body. Then his right shoulder shook and a kacha sound resounded. Dong Wuxiang slowly raised his right hand and slightly extended it. His shoulder recovered. His right foot fiercely stomped on the ground and issued an earth-shaking loud sound. Dust and smoke flew in all directions like an explosion of explosives. His right leg recovered. His comprehensive comprehension of the second-grade Saber Emperor realm had miraculously healed all the injuries on his body to perfection at this moment. His injuries hadn't fully recovered, and his present strength wasn't at its peak. But his movements were no longer hindered. No one would have been able to stop him if he had retreated at this time, including Du Lu Feng. But he didn't want to retreat. He wanted to kill. The cloth that had bound his hair suddenly exploded with a bang sound. His black hair fluttered down and draped over his shoulders. Dong Wuxiang's body was tall and sturdy. He stood tall and straight. Everyone in front of him had all kinds of feelings at this moment. The Dong Wuxiang in front of them wasn't Dong Wuxiang anymore. He was a devil god from the ancient abyss. He was looking at them with disdain. Dong Wuxiang's eyes were cold and emotionless as he looked at these people in front of him. He had once placed all his hopes and trust in them. Then he slowly raised his right hand. His movement was as slow as an ox climbing a hill. But it left behind a clear afterimage. Everyone clearly saw that his right hand was raised to the air. It was raised to the level of his shoulder. It was raised to the point where it was raised to the point where it was leaning backwards. Then, his right hand grabbed the hilt of the saber. It was the hilt of the black saber that had remained silent on his shoulder all this time. The afterimage he had left behind in front of him was still clearly visible when his right hand had grabbed the hilt of the saber. It had displayed a clear hierarchy and a clear sequence. The moment his right hand gripped the hilt of his blade, the 50 people in front of him felt their minds shake violently. It was as if the boundless sunny weather had suddenly turned dark. And a world-shaking thunderbolt flashed across the sky at the same time that it had turned dark. And it had smashed the darkness that had filled the entire sky. "You're heartless." "So I'm heartless," Dong Wuxiang bellowed. Then he suddenly unsheathed his black saber. An earth-shattering black light shot out. The afterimage he had left behind when he had unsheathed his saber was still in front of his chest. This saber had first smashed the afterimage in front of his body. Then it had also smashed the air in front of his body. Then it had streaked across the distance of 80 feet. And the saber's edge had been aimed at Du Lufeng's forehead. His body had also arrived in front of Du Lufeng when he had hacked down with his saber. However, Dong Wuxiang was still standing 80 feet away. His entire body was drenched in blood. His stature was tall and straight. He was like a deep pool of water in a mountain peak. One man could hold the pass against 10,000 men. At this moment, it was as if there were two Dong Wuxiang that were exactly the same in this world. One was still and the other was moving. The still one was standing and the moving one was killing people. Du Lufeng bellowed. He unleashed the highest strength of an 8th-grade Emperor-level expert in a flash. He didn't advance. Instead, he retreated 300 feet like a whirlwind. Dong Wuxiang's saber missed its target. And a deep mark appeared on the ground with a bang. It was only 1 foot wide. However, it was 100 feet deep. And it was a full 25 feet long. The might of this saber strike was so terrifying. "Let's attack together. Kill him," Du Lufeng shouted in a sharp voice. A thin blood stain had appeared on his forehead. And blood was gushing out of it uncontrollably. Dong Wuxiang hadn't hacked down with his saber. However, the saber energy of the Saber Emperor had injured him. His entire body would have been split into 2 halves if it had been a little bit heavier. Du Lufeng used his hand to touch his wound. However, his pure energy couldn't stop the bleeding. 45 people of the Dong clan crazily pounced on Du Lufeng after Du Lufeng had bellowed. Everyone had unsheathed their sabers and swords. And they were seething with murderous aura. Everyone knew that they would be dead if Dong Wuxiang didn't die today. After all, this matter had to be carried out in secret. And the clan's punishment would be enough to make everyone lose their lives if it was exposed. Dong Wuxiang swept his saber across. He then laughed wildly and said, "Heartless saber technique." Suddenly, the saber light became dazzling. That pitch-black black saber in his hand strangely emitted a multicolored saber light. The saber light swept across like lightning. Blood-curdling screams resounded repeatedly. The bodies of 7 people had been split into 2 halves. The smell of blood on the battlefield suddenly filled the air. And the atmosphere had become even more tragic. Dong Wuxiang laughed wildly. He then took large strides forward to attack. His body seemed like a moving lofty mountain range. He was so majestic that he seemed unexcelled in the world. A light swoosh sound was heard. Then a shadow appeared above his head. Du Lufeng had leapt down from the sky. The sword in his hand was emitting a sharp sword light. He then thrust it towards Dong Wuxiang's head. Dong Wuxiang fiercely lifted his black saber. And it issued a whoosh sound as he brandished it. Then, a pitch-black saber curtain appeared from the ground to the sky. It had condensed into substance. Clang. A loud sound was heard. Du Lufeng's body soared into the sky like a bird. But he then fiercely somersaulted a few times in the air. Then he staggered and fell to the ground. Only the hilt of his sword remained. The webbing between his thumb and index finger had been ruptured, and was dripping with blood. However, Dong Wuxiang's body also tilted. He staggered back a dozen or so steps. He left a deep footprint with each step he took. And he stepped on the ground and raised the dust in the sky. This kind of momentum didn't seem like a fight between 2 people. Instead, it seemed like 2 elephants had fiercely collided with each other at the highest speed. Moreover, the location was in one of the most dust-prone deserts. Dong Wuxiang had relied on the strength of a 2nd-grade saber emperor and the weight of his black saber to meet Du Lufeng's attack head-on. So, it seemed that the outcome of the fight had been evenly decided. In fact, Du Lufeng had fallen into a disadvantageous position. However, Dong Wuxiang's injuries were more serious in reality. He was a saber emperor who was far superior to an ordinary emperor-level expert. However, His strength was inferior in the face of the all-out attack of an 8th grade Emperor-level expert. Dong Wuxiang would have died on the spot if the black saber hadn't neutralized most of the enemy's power in fact, and posed a serious threat to the enemy. Attack immediately. His injuries haven't healed yet. Now his injuries have worsened. He doesn't have much fighting strength left. Du Lu Feng gnashed his teeth and shouted. First update. I'm heaty. A circle of blisters has formed on my tongue. It hurts to smoke a cigarette. I'm posting this chapter. I'm going out to get some medicine. Then I'm coming back to write. Today I'm proud of the world. I'm asking everyone for clicks, recommendation votes, monthly votes and evaluation votes. This second promotion is of great significance. I ask my brothers and sisters to lend me a helping hand. Let's show off our strength in all aspects. We'll show our proud strength in this promotion. Mobile monthly votes have also fallen very badly. My brothers and sisters who read on mobile phones, please put in some effort, okay? Thank you. I'm asking for monthly votes from now on. And I'm also asking for mobile readers, hee. Chapter 629. Du Lu Feng felt even worse. Not only had the weapon that had accompanied him for his entire life been destroyed, but even his internal organs had also been turned over. The merciless saber energy was wreaking havoc in his meridians. He simply couldn't free his hands to attack again. He just stood there stiffly, and tried his best to dissolve the saber energy in his meridians. He didn't dare to move. Du Lu Feng's heart shivered. I hadn't thought that the might of a saber emperor would be this strong. I had thought that he would only be a 2nd grade saber emperor even if he had made a breakthrough. And I was an 8th grade emperor level expert. So it wouldn't be a problem to crush him to death. But I hadn't expected that this move would be so sharp that both sides would suffer. He suddenly recalled a legend he had heard before. An emperor-level expert isn't frightening. What's frightening is a single emperor-level expert, saber emperor and sword emperor. The hegemony of a saber emperor and the sharpness of a sword emperor could kill enemies above their level as if they were cutting grass. Sure enough. The murderous intention in his heart became even more intense as he thought of this. How can I survive if I let Dong Wuxiang grow up? He has just made a breakthrough to 2nd grade saber emperor. Moreover, he is seriously injured. But he still possesses such power. What will happen if he recovers to his peak state? What if he becomes a 3rd grade saber emperor? What will happen? I must make Dong Wuxiang fall here today at all costs. Du Lu Feng secretly swore in his heart. Humans are so strange. He had come to intercept and kill Dong Wuxiang earlier for the sake of the Wei clan. Moreover, he couldn't bear to kill Dong Wuxiang. How rare is it for a youngster to be so successful? But when he discovered that Dong Wuxiang actually had the ability to kill him, he didn't have the slightest bit of that lofty demeanor of an expert. This appreciation of talent and his reluctance to do so had all turned into boundless killing intent. This murderous intention had nothing to do with the future of the Dong clan. It was because his own life had been threatened. Perhaps Du Lu Feng was loyal to the Dong clan. But the dark side of a person's heart couldn't be matched by any kind of loyalty. Dong Wuxiang spouted blood from his nose and mouth again. His 5 viscera had been severely shaken during the sneak attack. And his injuries had worsened after he had clashed with Du Lu Feng at this moment. However, Dong Wuxiang didn't stop. He didn't hesitate. The only thought in his mind at this moment was to kill these people. They are members of the Dong clan. But I just want to kill him. Because I've already broken your heart. I respected you in every way and left you some leeway. Why do you still want to kill me? I've always tolerated you and I've worshipped you since I was a child. Why do you still want to kill me? Do you know that I once swore in my heart that if you were in danger, I would risk my life to help you? Do you know that if it was a matter of life and death and only one of us could survive, I would definitely choose you to live? And I will die myself. Big brother, do you know? Do you know how badly you've hurt me this time? If you want me to leave the family, you only need to say the word. As long as you say it, I will leave obediently. I won't fight with you. But why didn't you even say a single word before taking action? Dong Wuxiang Xan roared. His eyes had turned red. He had almost lost his mind. Facing the 50 experts who were rushing towards him, he let out a sorrowful laugh and charged forward with his saber in hand. Her long black hair fluttered in the air. Kill? Dong Wuxiang roared. He leaped up abruptly and slashed down with his saber. A king-level expert was cut into 2 halves by his saber and blood splashed out. The black saber was brandished horizontally, and a king-level expert sword shattered with a clang sound. Then his hand shattered, his arm shattered, his shoulder shattered, and his head shattered. He was smashed into pieces by the black saber's back. Dong Wuxiang laughed wildly as he rushed into the crowd. He looked like a crazed tiger that had rushed into a flock of sheep. He only attacked without defending in the face of 50 people. His former comrades, who were now his enemies, fell down one by one in front of him. New wounds were constantly appearing on his body, and blood was unceasingly flowing out. However, it seemed as if he didn't feel anything. He was still shouting and fighting bravely. There wasn't the slightest bit of pity in his eyes. The kindness and pureness in his eyes had turned into indifference and ruthlessness. He didn't even bother to deal with the injuries on his body. He was only venting the sorrow in his heart to his heart's content. The black saber was blocked with a loud clang sound. Sparks flew in all directions. Dong Wuxiang was panting for breath. He raised his blood-red eyes and looked at the scene. He saw that there were only a dozen or so people left in front of him. And all of them were looking at him in horror. The one who had blocked his saber was the emperor-level expert who had spoken to him earlier. He turned his head to look and saw that there were 50 corpses lying on the ground. They were badly mutilated. And there was a blood-stained road behind him. He was nearly 1,000 feet away from the cliff. The emperor-level experts on the opposite side were scared witless. They felt as if they were in a dream. Moreover, it was a nightmare. 50 experts had been suppressed by him alone, and had been forced to retreat 1,000 feet. They had been retreating while people had been dying. But the other party hadn't relaxed at all. He had been charging and killing his way through. He had finally taken advantage of the opportunity when the other party had almost exhausted his strength to block the black saber. But he had also been shaken to the point that he had spat out a mouthful of blood. There were 10 people here, but only one of them is left. Moreover, all of them had been injured more or less. It was almost equivalent to a complete wipeout. And this was the fighting strength of the other party after he had been injured. Everyone was aghast as they thought of this. In particular, some low-ranked king-level experts and revered martial artists had a strange feeling in their hearts. I would have been invincible if I could have worked under such a brave and powerful clan lord, right? How awe-inspiring would that be? Dong Wuxiang felt that he didn't have much strength left in his body. His vision had also become somewhat fuzzy. This was a sign of excessive blood loss. He was very clear that he couldn't hold on any longer. But he wasn't resigned to this. I haven't killed everyone yet. He slowly withdrew his black saber. The tip of the saber was inserted into the ground. Then he held the saber's hilt as if he was holding a walking stick. His eyes were as cold as ice as he swept his gaze over the people in front of him. Suddenly he sneered mischievously. The faces of the people on the opposite side had turned as pale as paper. Everyone knew that they wouldn't be able to survive as long as Dong Wuxiang still had the strength to attack. They heard this sneer at this moment. Unexpectedly, they took a step back in unison. What a shame. The sneak attack from before was too light. The original plan was to have 10 elites deal with Dong Wuxiang and the remaining 40 people. But they had to monitor the Yu family. After all, this is no small matter. We have to be on guard from all sides. These people will lie in ambush here. The other 40 people will change into the Yu family's clothes. The 10 people from the Yu family and the Black Devil people will lie in ambush 100 miles away. The time and distance must be separated. After we finish the attack, we have to make sure that Dong Wuxiang doesn't have any ability to move. Then we have to retreat immediately. The people lying in ambush will inform the Yu family. The Yu family will immediately inform the Black Devil. The Black Devil will come and get rid of Dong Wuxiang. In this way, the Black Devil won't know that there's a civil war in the Dong family. Moreover, the Black Devil will be the scapegoat. Even if the Dong family suspects us, we can just push it away. We didn't kill him. Moreover, the Black Devil will certainly spread the news that they killed Dong Wuxiang. Didn't you hear it? If everything goes smoothly, we won't have any responsibility. We will eliminate the 2 dukes and guarantee the position of the Grand Duke. Henceforth, the Dong family will outshine the others and develop rapidly. The Black Devil will never be so stupid as to betray their ally, the Yu family. Because they will certainly want to use the Yu family for bigger things. But the Dong family won't give them that opportunity. Therefore, everyone is happy. We in the Yu family won't be suspected. Dong Wuxiang is dead. Everyone will do their best to kill the enemy even if they have to face the Black Devil in the future. There's nothing to say about that. But they had never expected that things would go completely beyond their expectations. They had gone from being confident in their victory to a bitter fight. Moreover, both sides have suffered losses. Dong Wuxiang is so dreadful. Everyone's intestines turned green with regret at this moment. We would have killed Dong Wuxiang if we had known this would happen. Then we would have left Dong Wuxiang's corpse to the Black Devil. But it's too late to say anything now. The 10 people looked at each other from afar. Everyone was seizing the time to regulate their breathing and recover their strength. The scene had suddenly quieted down from the fierce fight. Du Lu Feng was standing alone on the other side of the forest. He hadn't moved at all. He was still standing there in silence. However, the bulging muscles on the surface of his body had completely recovered. It was obvious that he would soon recover. Dong Wuxiang held the hilt of his saber and panted heavily. He stimulated his vitality with all his strength. Finally, he firmly looked at the people in front of him from his scattered hair. His eyes looked like 2 bolts of lightning brimming with murderous intent. He took a heavy step forward and pulled out his black saber from the ground with a clang sound. Then he slowly raised it. He pursed his lips and revealed a cruel arc. The people on the opposite side took a step back. In fact, their legs were somewhat trembling and weak. The domineering aura that Dong Wuxiang displayed with this step made them feel as if they were facing the Grim Reaper, and they couldn't resist at all. Du Lu Feng let out a long shout at this time. He had finally cleansed his body of the saber energy. Then he jumped up. Dong Wuxiang, second master, you can go in peace. His body flashed and he suddenly jumped up in midair. Then he pounced towards Dong Wuxiang like a thunderbolt. Dong Wuxiang had already raised his saber by this time. The corners of his mouth curled into a mocking smile. Suddenly, a meteor came from behind him with a schwa sound. Its speed was so fast that it issued a sharp sonic boom in the air. The friction in the air produced a faint white light as this meteor flew past. And it dispersed with the wind. It was a sharp arrow. Dong Wuxiang felt a sense of crisis approaching him. But he didn't have enough time to dodge since he was exhausted. He only had enough time to twist his body. The sharp arrow pierced through Dong Wuxiang's back with a puff sound and flew out from his right side. It was only half a foot long and was as thin as a mosquito's. It pierced through Dong Wuxiang's chest and flew forward at a high speed. Then it pierced deeply into the front of a king-level expert. Dong Wuxiang's body shook. He lowered his head and looked at the bloody hole in his chest. He felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Then he suddenly exhaled a long breath. The black saber slowly fell. The tip of the saber pointed downwards and pierced into the ground. He held the saber hilt with both hands, and the corners of his mouth curled into an apologetic smile. Chapter 630. Du Lu Feng hastily rushed over. His eyes were filled with pleasure and cruelty. However, something happened as soon as he jumped up. A black shadow suddenly flashed out of the woods like a demon. It arrived behind Du Lu Feng in 3 big strides like a meteor. Then 2 iron hands heavily patted his back while Du Lu Feng was feeling the most elated. This heavy blow was carried out in midair. However, it still produced a thunderous sound. It was a loud sound. It shook the air and caused the air to tremble and fluctuate. Du Lu Feng shouted loudly. Then he used all his strength to grab the enemy behind him. The enemy didn't have enough time to attack him. And he didn't have enough time to be sent flying. Du Lu Feng bit the enemy's arms from behind his back, and counterattacked with all his strength. It seemed as if the bodies of the 2 people were tied together. The ferocious attacking power finally displayed its effect at this time. Du Lu Feng faced upwards and roared. However, he spouted out a rain of blood. The bodies of the 2 people were sent flying like meteors. Wrong. Du Lu Feng had been sent flying. However, the person who had attacked him had also been sent flying along with him. That person screamed in fear. He exerted his strength with both of his hands and tried to break free. However, Du Lu Feng had already angrily shouted, "Black Devil!" Then a great plan descended on his body like a storm. The person who had been sent flying was a black-clothed and masked man. This black-clothed and masked man was a heavenly assassin of the Black Devil clan. His true cultivation wasn't as good as Du Lu Feng's 8th grade emperor level. However, the difference wasn't far. In particular, his concealment technique and assassination skills were outstanding. He had hidden in the woods and had launched an attack. And he had succeeded in one fell swoop. However, it was a pity that he had also lost his life. The 2 people were tightly entangled in midair. It seemed as if a pair of hoodlums were fighting. They were crazily hitting each other without any order. The domains of the 2 people rose at the same time. However, they cancelled each other out at the same time. They turned into nothingness. Every fist hit the flesh and every foot hit the ground. Fists, feet, teeth, elbows, knees, shoulders, waist and buttocks were all attacking weapons. In fact, even the head was a weapon. That Black Devil expert had spared no effort to struggle free. However, Du Lu Feng had wanted to drag him down with him even if he had died. I've received that blow. So, I won't have any fighting power even if I'm still alive. So, it would be better for me to burst out completely. Some people might ask why the Black Devil didn't attack Du Lu Feng when he was adjusting his saber energy. Wouldn't that be more convenient? Du Lu Feng had obviously been regulating his breathing at that time. The saber energy had also damaged his meridians. However, Du Lu Feng would have fought back if the enemy had attacked him with a fatal blow. He would have risked serious injury to his meridians to kill the enemy. Besides, when he was healing he was at his most vigilant. Black Demon did not have the confidence to sneak over silently. Now that he had just stood up, his vigilance was even lower. He was even more confident that victory was within his grasp. Now that he had completed his task, he would deliver a fatal blow. That was when he truly did not have the slightest bit of defense. Their bodies tangled together as they tumbled down. By the time they landed on the ground, both of them were no longer in shape. Both of their mouths were crazily spurting out mouthfuls of blood. The dignified Emperor-level experts, one of them was an 8th grade and the other was a 7th grade. But blood had splashed out from every part of their bodies when they had fallen to the ground. And the sounds of kacha and kacha were unceasingly resounding. It was unknown how many bones in their bodies had been broken. Both of them let out a final roar. They tilted their heads and opened their blood-red mouths. Their white teeth bit into each other's throats at almost the same time. Both of them didn't dodge. That was because both of them knew that they had no hope of surviving. So, they had to drag their opponent down with them before they died. Buff, buff. Blood gushed out from both of their throats at the same time. And they died at the same time. They had died an unnatural death. Dong Wuxiang allowed the blood to splash out from his chest and back. He remained motionless and his face was full of ridicule. There was also a card on his chest. This card was the symbol of Chu Yang's Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Dong Wuxiang clearly knew that there was a medicinal pill in this card. Big Brother had once said that he could recover in an instant if he took this pill, as long as his heart wasn't pierced, and as long as his head wasn't blown up on the spot and wasn't chopped off. Dong Wuxiang knew that he had always known about this. But he had never thought of taking this pill. His heart was already dead. Like dead ashes. His elder brother had wanted to deal with him. And the experts under his command had come out in full force. This was already an extremely heavy blow to him. And it had smashed all the beautiful wishes in his heart to pieces. Father, you're the clan lord. How could you not know about such a big movement? Dong Wuxiang asked in a low voice. Tears almost flowed out again. But he forcibly held them back. Even you don't want me anymore? Dong Wuxiang was very clear about the strict rules of the Dong clan and the strict management of its personnel. Such a large group of people, no matter why they had come out, would inevitably be recorded in the clan. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to leave the Dong clan's gate. Therefore, Dong Wuxiang was even more heartbroken and desperate. I can survive if this is the case. What can I do? What can I do? The education I've received since childhood is for the clan. Everything is for the clan. My many years of hard work is for the clan. Even some of the reasons I've followed Big Brother are for the clan. Big Brother said that he wants to lead our clan to the top of the heavens. I want to lead the Dong clan to the top of the upper 3 heavens. Unfortunately, you didn't give me the chance. Who will I fight for after today? Who will I risk my life for? Who will I work hard for? Even my father is indifferent to my life and death. Even my elder brother wants to kill me. Then what's the point of me living? Dong Wuxiang smiled bitterly. He smiled in despair. He smiled with a dead heart. I can take out the pill at any time. And I can recover in a moment. Even if the Heimo clan has 10 times more people, they still won't be able to stop Dong Wuxiang who has fully recovered his strength. But Dong Wuxiang refused to accept this. It's only death. Ah, how lively. I never imagined that this duke would actually come here this time to watch a good show of a fierce battle. A gloomy voice sounded out from afar, and the voice carried unrestrainable excitement and complacency. Moreover, this good show is an internal strife. This makes me even more excited. A black figure came from afar along with this voice. He was walking slowly and confidently. He was immensely complacent and calm. This person was dressed in black. He wore a long black robe. His face was covered with a black cloth. He walked on the road as if his feet didn't touch the ground. There were more than 40 black-clothed people behind him. There seemed to be bloodstains on their bodies. Some of them were even injured. However, they were looking at the 10 people who were still standing in front of them with a victorious look in their eyes. They had the right to be proud. The enemies in front of them didn't have the slightest strength to fight back. They were practically waiting to be killed. There was no threat to speak of. The enemy's strongest 8th grade Emperor-level expert had turned into a pile of rotten meat on the ground at this moment. Our side has also paid the price of a 7th grade Emperor-level expert's life. But it was worth it. The remaining people of the Dong clan were dumbstruck. Their faces were full of despair. That Emperor-level expert shuddered. Then he suddenly shouted, "Black Devil?" That black-clothed man issued a sinister laugh. His laughter was sinister, but it was obvious that he was happy. He slowly took a step forward and said in an elegant manner, "That's right. I hadn't expected that the illustrious and powerful Dong clan would have heard of the name of my Black Devil clan. Yes, I am the next Black Devil of the Black Devil clan. You can call me Lord Devil." "Lord Devil?" That Emperor-level expert of the Dong clan muttered. Then his body suddenly shook and he shouted, "Where are our people? Where are the people of the Yu clan? Black Devil, how did you get here? Where are our people?" The young Black Devil was surprised as he said, "Your people? Ahaha, you still have people there? Your people are missing. You should go and look for your people." "Why are you asking me? How would I know?" That Emperor-level expert snorted and said resentfully, "Then where are the people of the Yu clan?" "The people of the Yu clan? The people of the Yu clan don't have the surname Dong. So you can't ask them." The young Black Devil laughed out loud. "However, I see that you are very pitiful. So I will make an exception and answer your question." He shook his head and said, "You mean the 100 people of the Yu clan? Humph, they dared to betray the people of the Dong clan. I can't stand such ingrates. So I will do your Dong clan a big favor and kill them all. I will chop off their heads." He chuckled and said, "It just so happens that the Black Devil clan took a job. Many of them were on the list. So I brought back their heads after I killed them. Do you want to see?" That Emperor-level expert's body swayed. His face became even paler. He opened his mouth but didn't say anything. Instead he spat out a mouthful of blood. "Black Devil." He pointed at the Black Devil but couldn't say anything. He could only spit out mouthful after mouthful of blood. "It's over. It's all over. Only 10 people of the Yu clan have come. But the Black Devil has killed more than 100 people. It's obvious that the extra 40 people were the people of the Dong clan. Our only hope is gone." "Black Devil?" Dong Wuxiang seemed to have reacted. His body was somewhat sluggish. He turned around and looked at the Black Devil young master. His eyes lit up. "It's you?" The Black Devil young master sighed, "Brother Dong." Dong Wuxiang turned around and blocked the saber. Then he coldly said in a low and deep voice, "You came to kill me, right?" "Yes." The Black Devil young master looked up and sighed, "I didn't expect that I would encounter such a situation. But Brother Dong, I'm also grateful for this situation. After watching your fight, I realized that I'm not as good as you." He laughed. Although his laughter this time was sinister, it was filled with disappointment and respect. "If I were to face you directly, I'm afraid that you would definitely be able to break out of the encirclement unscathed. On the other hand, my side would suffer heavy casualties." Dong Wuxiang's body swayed. He didn't say anything. "I'm sorry, Brother Dong. I'm sorry that I can't have a fair fight with you. Even though I want to," the Black Devil young master solemnly said, "but I must kill you today. In order to show my respect for you, I'll kill this person first. Then I'll kill you. It can be considered as taking revenge for you. So you can rest in peace in the underworld." Dong Wuxiang sneered and said in a mocking tone, "The Black Devil clan has an internal strife? Ah, what a joke. Revenge? Do I need you to take revenge for me?" Third update. I'm afraid the fourth update won't be enough. Let's make it up to you tomorrow. Brothers and sisters, I need your guaranteed monthly votes for May. The 1st to the 7th month of the 5th month will still require double monthly votes. This is a rare opportunity. I hope that everyone will accompany me and try again. Chapter 631. Dong Wuxiang sneered and sneered. The Black Devil clan is taking advantage of internal strife? Ah, how laughable. Revenge? Do I need you to take revenge for me? The Black Devil young master was startled. He carefully looked at Dong Wuxiang's chest and the injuries all over his body. He was sure that Dong Wuxiang was like a lamp that had run out of oil. So he asked in bewilderment, "Brother Dong, you're already like this. Don't tell me you still want to take revenge with your own hands?" Dong Wuxiang coughed and laughed. He stopped his body while laughing and raised his head. His blade-like eyes looked disdainfully at the Black Devil young master. Then he didn't care that his body was bleeding unceasingly. He didn't care that his life force was draining away. He operated his primary power with all his strength. His body gradually emitted the unique aura of a saber emperor as he operated his cultivation technique. He didn't move. But the aura he suddenly emitted still shocked the Black Devil young master. He was seriously injured and on the verge of death. But the glorious aura he emitted at this moment was no different from his peak. He was still looking disdainfully at the world. He was still dominating the Jianghu. His body couldn't stop shaking. But he was still an unshakable lofty mountain in the eyes of the Black Devil assassins. This was a natural heroic spirit. It was a mighty and domineering aura in his bones. It couldn't change even if he died. Even these cold-blooded assassins couldn't help but reveal a look of admiration in their eyes when they faced such a heroic figure. Dong Wuxiang looked at the Black Devil young master with a smile that wasn't a smile. He naturally had a sense of disdain in his eyes. Then he said somewhat regretfully and mockingly, "So, you're not a hero?" "I'm not a hero?" The Black Devil young master was startled. He muttered and repeated this sentence. Then he said in puzzlement, "Brother Dong, please enlighten me. I died today because I wanted to die. So I died. So, I don't need anyone to take revenge for me." Dong Wuxiang laughed and proudly said, "No one in the world can make me die if I, Dong Wuxiang, don't want to die. Do you understand?" The Black Devil young master frowned. He pondered for a while and said, "I understand this sentence. I also understand why you didn't run away. I also understand why you wanted to die. It's because your heart is dead." "That's right." Dong Wuxiang laughed at himself and said, "Moreover, I don't want anyone to take revenge for me. But I do. But someone will take revenge for me. Only they have the right to avenge me, and you don't deserve it." The Black Demon young master narrowed his eyes and said in a gloomy voice, "I'm not worthy?" "That's right, you're not worthy. You don't deserve to avenge me." Dong Wuxiang laughed disdainfully. "You're just an assassin who hides in the dark and doesn't dare to see the light of day. I, Dong Wuxiang, have always been open and aboveboard. I've run amok in the world. Do you think that you're worthy to avenge me?" The Black Demon young master glared at him. The ominous glint in his eyes became more and more intense. It seemed as if he was about to fly into a rage out of humiliation. The look in Dong Wuxiang's eyes did not change. He was still arrogant and cynical. They looked at each other for a long time. Then the Black Devil young master gasped for breath. Finally, he lowered his head in disappointment. He forced a smile and said, "Yes, I'm not worthy." He said somewhat enviously, "Perhaps. Only King of Hell Chu and Gu Du Xing are worthy of taking revenge for you. I really don't deserve it. You're right, because I'm just an assassin in the dark." The Black Devil young master chuckled and said indifferently, "However, I have no choice in this matter. Dong Wuxiang, if you were in my place, you wouldn't be so heroic and tyrannical." He seemed to have found an excuse for himself as he said this. His voice became calm again. "Heroes don't ask where they come from." Dong Wuxiang sneered and said, "You're looking for an excuse to absolve yourself. That's not what a hero should do." "Are Chu Yang and Gu Du Xing heroes?" The Black Devil young master seemed somewhat unconvinced. Dong Wuxiang's eyes suddenly brightened when he heard him mention Chu Yang and Gu Du Xing's names. Then they immediately darkened. "Yes, they are my brothers. My best brothers. Therefore they deserve to avenge me," Dong Wuxiang said proudly. Then I don't understand. Since you still have good brothers in this world, why don't you want to live anymore?" The Black Devil young master asked in a somewhat critical manner. "Don't tell me that you're not afraid that your brothers will be sad for you? I also want to meet with them. But I can't." Dong Wuxiang's words were clearly not an answer to the Black Devil young master. Instead, he was explaining something to his brothers. Or he was explaining it to himself or to the world. His voice was somewhat ethereal and somewhat sad, "Because my heart is dead. Even if I live, this will be my inner demon. I can't get rid of it for life. Therefore I can't keep up with their footsteps. I know what I care about the most. Therefore I can't control myself from thinking about these things. Therefore my heart is dead. I can only endlessly burden them if I live." Dong Wuxiang smiled faintly. He looked at the Black Devil young master with pity. Do you know that my brothers are all heaven-defying talents? How can I burden them? How can a person who burdens his brothers be qualified to live? Although my brothers don't care, I Dong Wuxiang care. Therefore, Black Devil, I sympathize with you the most, because you don't even have a real brother. If you had one, you wouldn't have asked me this question. Dong Wuxiang looked at him mockingly. The gloomy aura around the Black Devil young master's body became even denser. Dong Wuxiang's mockery seemed to have hit his weak spot. However, he panted heavily. He didn't say anything. Instead, he pondered. My brothers will be sad if I die. But if they avenge me, it will arouse their fighting spirit and make them even more united. They will cherish their brothers even more and work even harder. They will also achieve greater things. Dong Wuxiang said indifferently, so, what harm is there in the death of a person whose heart has died? I don't have brothers. I can't feel it. But I'm envious. The Black Devil young master's voice was somewhat gloomy and feminine as he said, but I'm an assassin who can't see the light of day. Don't you think it's too ridiculous for me to have brothers? Dong Wuxiang looked at him strangely. Whether you have brothers or not, does it have anything to do with whether you're an assassin or not? Does it have anything to do with it? Does it have anything to do with it? The Black Devil young master slowly muttered. After a long time, he raised his head. Even if it doesn't matter, even if I don't have brothers, what does it have to do with whether I'm a hero or not? But why do you say that I'm not a hero? He was somewhat agitated as he said, even assassins can't see the light of day. But there are also heroes. It just depends on whether the meaning of being a hero is the same as yours. And this is Jianghu. What is Jianghu? Slaughter. Blood. Why do you say that I'm not a hero? Don't tell me that I'm not a hero when I take advantage of your perilous state to kill you. Don't tell me that I should wait for you to recover before I die at your hands. Then I'm a hero? His question was very urgent, very quick and very sharp. You don't understand what a hero is. Dong Wuxiang chuckled. Then he looked up and sighed, fine. You're the last person I talk to in this world. So I'll say a few more words to you. Otherwise, I'll be too lonely on the road to hell. You said that you want to take revenge for me first. Hee hee. Dong Wuxiang sneered and said, you killed them. So, what does it have to do with me? That's it. Secondly, they are my Dong clan's people. Even if I, Dong Wuxiang, am ostracized by my clan and killed by them, this is my Dong clan's matter. What does it have to do with you? Thirdly, no one can say anything if I kill them. But how can an outsider kill my Dong clan's people? Dong Wuxiang sneered, you want to kill them? So I'll kill you. I haven't been expelled from the clan. I'm still a member of the Dong clan. So, I'm still their second master even if they want to kill me. You want to kill them? Have you asked for my permission? Dong Wuxiang continued to sneer, I can chop them into pieces. I would have perished together with them if you hadn't come today. If I kill all of you today, I'll kill all of them later. But they can't die in your hands before I die. Who do you think you are? Dong Wuxiang laughed out loud, you dare to kill my Dong clan's people? The Black Devil young master was wearing a veil over his face. But one could clearly see that he was dumbfounded. That was because his eyes had almost popped out of their sockets. There was also a clear dent in the mouth of his veil. He had never expected that Dong Wuxiang's reason would be this. But, what kind of reason is this? Dong Wuxiang had wanted to kill me a moment ago. And I had also wanted to kill him as if I was cutting a watermelon. But he didn't allow me to kill him now. There's such a principle in the world. He would have sighed if he knew what Dong Wulei had said to Dong Wuxiang. These two brothers are worthy of being called brothers. Their protective nature is as good as that. Moreover, Dong Wuxiang is even better than his elder brother. It's unimaginable that he would be so protective of his younger brother to this extent. A man like you is very strange. The Black Devil young master smiled sinisterly. Then he sighed in a low voice and said, it would be a very lucky thing if someone could be the brother of a man like you. Dong Wuxiang took a deep breath and stopped his body from swaying. His eyes flashed with brilliance as he proudly said, that's because you haven't come into contact with my brothers. You would have known that being their brother is the luckiest thing in life if you knew what we've gone through. The Black Devil young master remained silent. I'm very lucky to be your brother. And I'm also very lucky to be your subordinate. Then the Black Devil young master finally opened his mouth and said, I'm very moved. He raised his head and his eyes flickered a little, But it's a pity that you must die today. I don't want to kill you. But I must kill you. An expert behind Dong Wuxiang suddenly said in a trembling voice, Second Master. Shut up. Dong Wuxiang coldly shouted, You must die no matter what. Even if we die, we can't die in vain. This expert suddenly stuck out his chest. They had thought that they would die without a doubt behind Dong Wuxiang. But they had felt a surge of warmth in their bodies after Dong Wuxiang had spoken those words. Even if we die, we still have someone to protect us. He wants to kill us too. But he's still a member of the Dong clan. The Black Devil young master's eyes were filled with conflicting emotions. He looked at Dong Wuxiang's eyes. He was clearly hesitant. But he finally waved his hand and shouted, Attack! Kill! To be continued. Chapter 632. After saying this, he closed his eyes and turned around. It was as if he couldn't bear to see Dong Wuxiang being dismembered. Dong Wuxiang sneered. He slowly raised his saber from the ground. The blade was cold. This battle would be the last battle of his life. He slowly said, Black Devil, are you not going to take my life personally? Young Black Devil's eyes flashed with a complicated light. He said eerily, I don't dare. This sentence was eerie, but it was very real. It was definitely not sarcastic. He didn't dare. He really didn't dare. Because the current Dong Wuxiang could still explode with a final attack at any time. And it was also his only attack. Even if Dong Wuxiang died immediately after this final attack, the Black Devil couldn't avoid being injured. It just depended on the severity of the injury. Dong Wuxiang laughed. He slowly raised his saber in front of his chest. He looked up to the sky and shouted, Black Devil, although we are about to be separated by life and death, this sentence of yours is the greatest respect for me, Dong Wuxiang. You don't dare. You don't dare. Ah, who dares? Dong Wuxiang roared. He glared and took a step forward. His eyes shot out a divine light. He looked at the experts of the Black Devil in front of him. Young Black Devil's face was red behind the veil. There were more than 10 high-level assassins of the Black Devil in front of Dong Wuxiang. They were intimidated by his aura. All of them suddenly felt their hearts palpitate. It was as if their hearts had suddenly stopped beating. They unexpectedly took a step back in unison. Their eyes involuntarily revealed a look of fear. Dong Wuxiang was on the verge of death. His power suppressed more than 10 top assassins, and none of them dared to take a step forward. Who dares? Dong Wuxiang roared again. He took another step forward. His blood-stained black hair suddenly flew up and fluttered in the wind. He looked like a demon god. The Black Devil's subordinates took another step back. They wanted to stand up and face the attack. These people were all murderers. Who had they feared in their lives? But at this moment they couldn't take a step forward. Their hearts wanted to go forward, but their feet couldn't help but retreat. Some people wanted to roar to boost their morale, but they found that they couldn't. Dong Wuxiang's earth-shattering aura made them completely unable to raise any thoughts of resistance at this moment. Who dares? Who dares to fight with me, Dong Wuxiang? Dong Wuxiang let out a long howl. Then he took another step forward with a loud boom. Suddenly he burst out laughing, Ha! How delightful! The Black Devil young master looked at Dong Wuxiang's godlike appearance. Suddenly his mind shook, and his eyes became somewhat intoxicated in an instant. This was a true hero. A peerless hero. At this moment, Dong Wuxiang gave Black Devil young master a feeling. Even if the sky were to collapse at this moment, Dong Wuxiang would still be able to split it into two with a single slash. A real man like Dong Wuxiang would not have lived his life in vain if he could have this kind of spirit. It was a pity that such a hero was going to fall in his own hands, dying at such a young age. Was a pity? What a Dong Wuxiang! Good spirit. The Black Devil young master circulated his martial power with all his might, and praised with a thunderous voice. This sentence cut Dong Wuxiang's imposing aura in half. After all, Dong Wuxiang was already an arrow at the end of its flight. More than a dozen Black Devil experts seemed to have been awakened from a dream at the same time. Each of them had an extremely ashamed and angry look on their faces. They all shouted at the same time. Go! The Black Devil young master looked up to the sky and sighed. More than a dozen experts rushed forward at the same time. Dong Wuxiang burst out laughing, Come on! He raised his saber and rushed out with big strides. His body was seriously injured and he couldn't jump. But he still took big strides forward with an upright posture. In fact, It seemed as if he was crossing a mountain with one step and crossing a sea with one step. One step and one cycle. One step and one life and death. Both sides were about to engage in close combat. An intense ruthlessness flashed in Dong Wuxiang's eyes. The saber light flashed and the 280-kilogram black saber was raised high. At this moment, the sound of galloping horses' hooves suddenly resounded from a distance like rolling thunder. The sound of galloping horses' hooves was as rapid as a gale, and as dense as a shower. Just by listening to this, one could imagine how anxious the person on the horse was at this moment. Everyone who was about to engage in battle was shocked in their hearts. A man and a horse were rushing over from a distance like a whirlwind. The man hadn't arrived yet, but he had already anxiously roared, "Wu Shang." This roar came from a distance like a thunderclap, and echoed from all directions. Anxiety, heartache, fear, worry, pampering, all kinds of emotions seemed to be contained in this roar. This roar was simply the fusion of the 7 desires of life. Dong Wuxiang suddenly raised his head, and looked at the man and his horse in disbelief. His eyes suddenly emitted a luster, and his lifeless eyes finally regained some vitality. Marulong arrived in front of them very quickly. A figure jumped down from the horse's back as if he was flying. He glanced at the 50 men of Heimo in an indifferent manner. It seemed as if he didn't care about them at all. As if no one else was present. Dong Wulei. Several assassins of Black Devil coldly snorted, and were about to attack. The young man's eyes emitted a dazzling light. But he waved his hand and snorted. Several assassins of Black Devil kept quiet out of fear and shrank back. Dong Wuxiang looked at his elder brother walking towards him. He suddenly became very excited. It seemed as if he was looking forward to something. Is this for real? Dong Wulei didn't have any misgivings. He passed through the crowd with no regard for anyone else. He strode over and stood in front of Dong Wuxiang. Then his sharp gaze swept over Dong Wuxiang's body from top to bottom. He swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva, and his pupils shrank. A look of worry and heartache flashed across his eyes. But he quickly concealed it and changed it into a calm and controlled voice. Who did this? Who hurt my brother? Dong Wuxiang's body suddenly trembled with these words. His nose turned sour, and his ice-cold heart recovered in an instant. His tightly shut mouth couldn't help but flatten in a split second. He remembered when he was young he would cause trouble outside, fight with others and suffer losses. But his elder brother would always arrive in time and then look at the injuries on his body and ask with heartache, "Who did it? Who hit my brother?" He hadn't heard these words since he was 10 years old. But he finally heard them today. Dong Wuxiang suddenly realized that he had become weak. Dong Wuxiang didn't know when this word weak had faded from his life. But he suddenly wanted to cry out loud at this moment. This was inconceivable for a man like Dong Wuxiang who was made of iron. But this was the fact. His nose turned sour, and his tears started to flow uncontrollably. The remaining experts of the Dong clan behind Dong Wuxiang trembled. Some were happy, some were worried, and some were puzzled. How did eldest young master come here at this time? There are enemies everywhere. Dong clan doesn't have any fighting power. So he came here alone. What should we do? Moreover, it's strange. Could it be that eldest young master didn't know about the ambush of the second duke? Moreover, he opposed it? But young mistress, I'm confused. I'm really confused. Black Devil. I want to bandage my brother's wounds. You can kill him later if you want to. Dong Wulei looked at Dong Wuxiang with his back facing the Black Devil. He insipidly said without turning his head, I'm the only one from the Dong clan this time. You can rest assured. You can wait until I'm done with my business. Is that okay? Young Black Devil swallowed his saliva with some difficulty. He didn't know why, but his eyes had become moist. But he took a deep breath and said in a gloomy manner, You're about to die. Why are you bandaging your wounds? Won't you become a corpse in a while even if you bandage your wounds like a rice dumpling? Dong Wulei tore a strip of cloth from his underwear, and started to bandage Dong Wuxiang's wounds as if no one else was present. He insipidly said, I'm going to die in a while. But that's another matter. But I must bandage his wounds before I die. This bastard doesn't know how to take care of himself. He doesn't know how to stop the bleeding. Even if I go to the underworld with him to meet the ancestors. I'm his elder brother. What if the ancestors ask me, why is my brother in such a miserable state? Wouldn't I lose face as his elder brother? I must bandage my brother's wounds even if I die in an instant. Dong Wu Lei insipidly said, "How I treat my brother is my responsibility. I can't throw away this responsibility in life and death. Although I'm very jealous of him. And I also want him to disappear." Dong Wushang wanted to say something. But he felt that his throat was choked with emotions. He couldn't say a word. Young Black Devil calmly looked at them for a while. Then he said in a hoarse voice, "All right. I'll give you brothers a quarter of an hour in that case." Dong Wu Lei paused for a moment. Then he said in a low and deep voice, "Black Devil, you're worthy of being a hero among assassins." Young Black Devil didn't know why, but he felt somewhat comforted in his heart when he heard these words. He forced a smile and said in his heart, "Your younger brother just scolded me for not being a hero. He scolded me until I was bleeding. But you're doing the opposite now. You're saying that I'm a hero. You didn't fully admit it. You only said that I'm a hero among assassins. But you're much more polite than your younger brother." He couldn't help but ask as he thought of this, "Dong Wu Lei, are you a hero?" Dong Wu Lei didn't turn his head as he replied, "I'm not. Heroes die quickly. Just like this stupid pig Dong Wushang. I'm not a hero. I can barely be regarded as a very incompetent and far-fetched ambitious and ruthless person." Dong Wu Lei was indeed not a hero. He was even jealous of his own younger brother. He had pushed him aside. He had fought for power and profit in his clan. He had used all his schemes. How could he be regarded as a hero with such behavior? But he wasn't an ambitious and ruthless person. An ambitious and ruthless person would never be as impulsive as he was now. He would have made a prompt decision to retreat if he had been an ambitious and ruthless person when he had seen the people of Black Devil clan surrounding the dying Dong Wushang. He would have prioritized his own life no matter how much pain and unwillingness he had felt at that time. However, Dong Wu Lei had rushed over without any consideration. That was because he had seen his younger brother's entire body covered in blood. It seemed as if he would die in the next moment. And he had suddenly forgotten everything. He had forgotten power. He had forgotten benefits. He had forgotten status. Chapter 633. The World Defying Heavens by Wind Conquers the World. If you like this work, please vote for it or collect it. Don't know how to vote or collect it? Please read the post, D4467. Let's dance in the clouds and defy the heavens together. Let's read this magnificent chapter together. There was only one thought in Dong Wu Lei's mind at that moment. This is my younger brother. I won't let him die even if I die. I'll die with him even if he has to die. My younger brother is young. He'll be alone on the road to hell. He'll be afraid. Therefore he impulsively rushed towards his younger brother. He had always been jealous and suspicious of him. I don't have to shed tears. But I must make sure that he doesn't get injured. Young Black Devil became silent when he heard Dong Wu Lei's words. If someone understood him, they would have discovered that young Black Devil, the future king of the world of assassins, was silently laughing. Dong Wu Lei had already started to bandage Dong Wushang's wounds in a deft manner. He tore off a piece of underwear from Dong Wushang's body, and started to bandage his younger brother's wounds one by one. This well-dressed great duke of the Dong clan had rushed over in a short period of time. But his body was already in tatters. The people of the Black Devil clan silently looked at the two brothers. One of them had tears in his eyes. He was standing motionless. And the other was constantly busy. He was meticulously bandaging Dong Wushang's wounds. His strength was gentle and careful. However, no one dared to move before young Black Devil gave the order. Besides, the Dong brothers were like turtles in a jar. They couldn't run away. So they weren't in a hurry. Dong Wu Lei's heart had already sunk while he was bandaging his younger brother's wound. A kind of despair had welled up in his heart. He wanted to cry. Dong Wushang's body had over 100 big and small injuries. The most serious one was a bloody hole in his chest. It ran from the front to the back. His waist had been punched. But it had swollen all around. But his waist had caved in. This was a serious internal injury. Dong Wu Lei's hands were trembling. He still had a slim hope. My younger brother is a martial arts genius. He's a saber emperor. I would have bandaged his wounds. And I would have gone all out with my subordinates to cover Dong Wushang's escape. However, he was in despair now. Dong Wushang's injuries. He hadn't died on the spot. It was already very good. He could die at any time if he used too much strength. There was no way to save him. He was dead for sure. Dong Wu Lei's breathing became coarse and heavy. He was exerting more and more force. His voice sounded like the roar of an ox. He was trying his best to control his bitterness and heartache, but he couldn't. He only felt that his chest was sore and painful. It was so painful that he wished he was dead. Dong Wuxiang stood there contentedly. Right now, his heart was filled with happiness. My brother is still my brother. I'm content. Dong Wu Lei bandaged most of Dong Wuxiang's serious wounds. Then he turned his head to look at the remaining members of the Dong clan while tying knots on his brother's wounds. Everyone wanted to avoid his gaze. But Dong Wu Lei's sharp gaze had already shot over. Is it you, who injured Wuxiang? His voice was heavy and oppressive. It was still dull and indifferent. However, he had clenched his teeth as he spoke. Anyone would be able to hear the resentment contained in these words. Yes. Everyone agreed at the same time. Then they lowered their heads. They realized at the same time, we are done for. Eldest young master doesn't know about this matter arranged by eldest young mistress. Everyone wasn't afraid of death. But they were afraid that they would be branded as traitors before they died. Then their wives and children in the clan would be finished. The muscles on Dong Wu Lei's face twitched. He exposed a somewhat hysterical and sinister expression. Then he swallowed a mouthful of air and insipidly said, "What about the others?" Dead. All dead. Even the second senior elder is dead. Everyone felt sorrowful in their hearts. Had I known earlier that eldest young master didn't mean to do this? Why did I bother to do this? Wouldn't these people have died in vain? It's good that they died. It's good that they died. It saves me the trouble. Dong Wu Lei nodded. He took a deep breath. Were they killed by the second senior elder? Or the Black Devil? Yes, it was the second senior elder. Everyone didn't dare to conceal anything. They nodded one after another. It's good that they died? It saves me the trouble? Is this the Grand Duke's evaluation of those people? Everyone felt dizzy. It's good that they were killed. Dong Wu Lei nodded again. He clenched his teeth and said, they deserve to die. They deserve to die. It's good that they were killed, again. Why didn't you people die? Dong Wu Lei's eyes suddenly became cruel and vicious like a vulture's. He coldly said, you obstructed the second senior elder as subordinates. You were disloyal, unfilial, heartless, and unrighteous. So why are you still alive? Everyone's face exposed a look of despair and grief. I've already punished that B*TCHU Shio. And you people are my accomplices. Dong Wu Lei coldly said, when has the Dong clan's order ever been issued, from the mouths of ignorant women and children? You're so gullible that you've caused my brother and I to die here today. The Dong clan doesn't have a successor. Its destruction is right in front of your eyes. You've committed such a heinous crime. But you're still standing in front of me with a clear conscience? Everyone's complexion turned ashen. They were on the verge of collapse. Don't say that you're loyal to me or to the Dong clan. You didn't deserve to be a member of my Dong clan from the moment you attacked the second senior elder. Dong Wu Lei's voice was soft. But his voice and countenance were stern. Bean-sized beads of cold sweat trickled down his face. But he lowered his head and didn't dare to say a word. But, brother. Dong Wuxiang was so excited that he couldn't speak. Dong Wu Lei heaved a long sigh. He then said in a low and deep voice, Wuxiang, would you believe me if I said that I didn't know about this matter? I believe you. Dong Wuxiang nodded heavily. But he was happy from the bottom of his heart. Dong Wu Lei has personally risked his life in this hopeless situation. So, what's there to be worried about? What's there to not believe? Good brother. Dong Wu Lei laughed heartily. His face and eyes were biased towards a malicious temperament. So, it was somewhat strange for him to issue such a hearty laugh. I'm indeed afraid of you. I can't wait for you to disappear. Dong Wu Lei's gaze was still somewhat complicated as he looked at his younger brother. But I'll look for you myself if I can't bear it. And I'll make you leave. I'll kill you if you don't leave. I've worked hard for more than 20 years to become the clan lord of the Dong clan. I won't give up. Do you understand? I understand. Dong Wuxiang nodded heavily. My heart feels a lot more comfortable now that I've said these things. Dong Wu Lei smiled. I wouldn't have said it if it weren't for the fact that it was completely hopeless. He looked at his younger brother with concern as he said this. Then he asked, can you still hold on? Yes. Dong Wuxiang nodded heavily. His complexion was weak, but his spirit was already roused. Good. You and I haven't fought together for many years. Dong Wu Lei faintly smiled. I didn't expect that we'd be fighting side by side in the final battle this time. In fact, it's a battle to the death. Speaking of which, I'm somewhat grateful to your sister-in-law. That's because she left a root for the Dong clan. He smiled and softly said, I had planned to divorce her as long as I returned this time. But now, I'm somewhat reluctant to part with her. Ah. Dong Wuxiang swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then he said in a low voice, Big brother, sister-in-law is doing this for your own good. For my own good. Dong Wu Lei smiled coldly, but her reasons can't represent my feelings. Even the most heinous people have a reason for everything they do. Therefore, I never listen to reasons or explanations. I only look at the results. The results make me unhappy. So, they deserve to die even if they have a big reason. Dong Wu Lei sighed. He looked at Dong Wuxiang with heartache and regret. Brother Wuxiang, it's a pity that we're going to die today. It's a pity that your youth and unrivaled talent are going to be wasted. It's your big brother's fault. Dong Wuxiang's eyes emitted a fervent luster. He put his hand into his bosom and said, Big brother, we may not necessarily die. Dong Wuxiang felt an intense desire erupt in his heart at this moment. I don't want to die. His hand tightly grasped the jade token in front of his chest. It was the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's jade token. Dong Wu Lei felt his eyes become hot. He looked at his younger brother's young and happy face, and couldn't help but feel as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. He knew why Dong Wuxiang was so happy even though he had suffered such serious injuries. It was because he had been longing for himself. He had been longing for the revival of brotherly love. Dong Wuxiang had finally woken up today. However, it was already too late. But, his younger brother was still so happy from the bottom of his heart even though he was about to die. Dong Wu Lei felt an intense pain in his heart. But, he endured the intense sourness in his heart. He slowly stood up, turned his back and said with sorrow, Yes, we may not necessarily die. However, he had secretly made up his mind, I won't let you die even if I have to die. You must die after me even if you have to die. I can't bear the thought of my younger brother being killed in front of me. Dong Wu Lei strode towards young Black Devil as he thought of this. His complexion was calm and his footsteps were steady. Young Black Devil seemed to know what Dong Wu Lei wanted to do when he saw Dong Wu Lei walking over. So, he waved his hand to signal the others not to obstruct him. Dong Wu Lei arrived in front of young Black Devil without any hindrance. Young Black Devil looked at him with his sharp eyes. Then, he sinisterly said, Have you come to beg for mercy? The token in Dong Wuxiang's bosom cracked open with a soft sound. There was a small and flat purple crystal bottle inside. Dong Wuxiang's hand trembled as he said in his heart, Big brother, thank you. The next moment, the incomplete version of the heavy pill was already in his mouth. Dong Wuxiang suddenly felt a surge of heat in his dantian. The damaged meridians all over his body were like seedlings that had been in a drought for a long time. The meridians in his body were recovering at lightning speed at this moment. In fact, he could even feel the various wounds on his body. Moreover, he could feel the itchiness of his muscles as they healed. His meridians were repaired in the blink of an eye. His internal injuries were repaired the next moment. Then, his exhausted elemental power suddenly converged. Thousands of streams converged into a river, and gradually set off monstrous waves in his dantian. The wounds on his body scabbed over in a flash and then fell off. The penetrating wound on his chest was fusing at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. It slowly turned into a small pit. Then it slowly swelled up and smoothed out. Dong Wuxiang suddenly opened his eyes. Two sharp divine lights shot out from his eyes. They were like saber lights and they came out majestically. At this time, Dong Wu Lei also said something to the Black Devil, Let my younger brother go. I'll let you do whatever you want to me. I clicked on a few posts for monthly votes. I found that many of my brothers had written down their words when they were voting for me. I apologize for this. Those posts were posted by the system. They weren't on the front page of the book review section. I rarely clicked on them. Moreover, there were too many posts and I didn't have time to read them. I might have missed a lot of them. I have to tell everyone that if you have any words or suggestions, you can post them in the book review section. I read them every day. Of course, there are some people scolding me in the book review section. But please rest assured that I've already been through a lot. Hehe, requesting monthly votes. There are still 2 more updates today. It will be a little late. I haven't eaten since I woke up. Requesting monthly votes. I won't say any more. Words are provided by the Qihang Update team. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for it. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 634. Young Black Eagle's body trembled as he cried out, "What?" He had thought of many possibilities. He thought that Dong Wu Lei had come to beg for mercy, or to negotiate terms, or to surrender, or to... However, he hadn't expected that Dong Wu Lei wouldn't do anything, and would only say such a sentence. Dong Wuxiang was dead for sure in the current situation. However, if Dong Wu Lei had hardened his heart, he would have been able to break out of the encirclement and return alive. However, Dong Wu Lei had given up on him, and wanted his dying brother to go back. "Don't you know that your brother won't live for long even if he goes back?" Black Devil's voice was hoarse as he looked at Dong Wu Lei. "Even if I don't kill him now and let him leave, I'm afraid he'll die before he reaches the Dong clan's gate. Don't you know?" Dong Wu Lei coldly snorted and said, "So what? I just want my brother to go back. My brother went out to commit a crime for nearly a year. He hasn't seen my father, or my mother." Dong Wu Lei mischievously smiled and said, "I miss him very much. I see him every day at home. It's cruel to see him before he dies, but it's better than not seeing him at all. I only have this one request. Do you agree?" Ji Wu Lei insipidly said, "You came here today to kill. In other words, you came here to kill Wu Shang. Now you've won a complete victory and you've spared me. I'll die in your hands. I won't be able to hold on for long with my supreme injury. I'll die for sure. Your goal has been achieved. Do you agree?" Dong Wu Lei asked in a deep voice. "Moreover, this will reduce a lot of casualties for you. Do you agree?" The young man, Haimi, suddenly felt that he was panicking. "Do I agree?" Just as Dong Wu Lei said, "I've achieved my goal this time. Moreover, this condition can reduce casualties and preserve my strength. Do I agree? Don't I agree?" He hesitated. The Black Devil assassins around also looked at their young master with bright eyes. In their opinion, they couldn't agree at all. The psychological satisfaction of killing a powerhouse in a battle, and killing a high-ranking person, couldn't be replaced by any enjoyment. However, if he were to kill a helpless person, how could there be any pleasure in that? Wasn't the reputation of the Jianghu people based on stepping on the corpses of their enemies step by step? Good. Guimo couldn't help looking at Dong Wushang's direction. He was ready to agree. He knew that he shouldn't agree, but he had to. The moment he opened his mouth, he suddenly saw Dong Wushang. Then, the words that were about to leave the door got stuck in his throat. Because Dong Wushang slowly stood up and walked over step by step. The broadsword stood upright on his shoulder and his eyes shone brightly. Obviously he was full of spirit and energy. The young man took a step back. Behind his mask, his mouth was wide open. His eyes were filled with disbelief. In the depths of his eyes, there was even a hint of joy. Perhaps even the Black Demon himself did not know about this faint trace of joy Dong Wu Lei was about to urge him. But he suddenly felt that something was wrong. So he followed young Black Devil's line of sight and turned his head to look. He couldn't help but let out a "G" sound. He was completely startled. His entire body stiffened. What did I just see? I actually saw a healthy younger brother. Dong Wu Lei blinked his eyes with all his might. He blinked again. Then he raised his hand and rubbed his eyes with all his might. Suddenly tears burst out of his eyes. He wanted to hold them back, but he couldn't help it. He covered his eyes with all his might and coughed with all his might. This is too shameful. The old watermark of departure actually cried in front of so many enemies. Black Demon, I have recovered. Dong Wushang slashed with his broadsword, and a big tree in the distance fell down and split into pieces. Don't talk about any conditions. You can't kill us now. Do you regret it? Dong Wushang said indifferently. Dong Wushang was tall and sturdy. When he stood in front of young Haimi, young Haimo was tall and slender. However, when he stood in front of Dong Wushang, he was actually shorter than him by a head. The Black Devil young master took a deep breath. A strange look flashed through his eyes. He seemed to have heaved a sigh of relief. Then he said in a sinister voice, "Regret? Of course I regret it. I regret that I didn't kill you earlier." Even Dong Wushang could hear the insincerity in his words. He couldn't help but laugh. Young Black Demon stood there quietly for a while. He lowered his head. No one could see the look in his eyes. If someone saw it, they would be very surprised. Because his eyes clearly showed that he was relieved. He seemed to have found a reason to be relieved. He suddenly waved his hand and said, "Give up on this mission. Leave immediately." He turned around and flew away. The 4 heaven-grade assassins behind him were the most astonished. "We are leaving just like that? What are we doing here? So what if Dong Wushang has recovered? We have more than 10 people on our side. 4 heaven-grade assassins plus Xiao Gui. In addition, we have more than 50 earth-grade assassins. Our strength is absolutely overwhelming. Even if we can't kill Dong Wuxiang, we can pay a price to severely injure him. And Dong Wuxiang will definitely die. Why should we leave when we have such a good situation? Young master, this? One of the heaven-grade assassins looked at his Xiao Gui's back with some hesitation and said. I said, leave. Young black demon snorted from afar. He said gloomily, do you have an opinion? But we. Type drop mouth J reciprocal drop mouth, no buts. The world cries when the Saber Emperor appears. Haven't you heard of this sentence? Rather than forming an irreconcilable enmity, it's better to do a favor today. Young black demon said. His slender body floated far away. His gloomy voice came from afar. Dong Wuxiang, you owe me a favor. Remember. The black demon assassins were stunned for a while. That heaven-grade assassin finally waved his hand. He said with some hatred and unwillingness, leave. Swish, swish. The HMO killers disappeared without a trace. Dong Wuxiang smiled bitterly. He knew that young black demon's words were not wrong. If it was a fight to the death, he wouldn't have a problem escaping even if he couldn't win against the enemy's numbers. However, the problem was that his elder brother would definitely die. Young black demon's departure was like sending an adult to him. Dong Wuxiang didn't know why young black demon, who was famous for being gloomy and terrifying in the three heavens, would leave so easily today. He knew that there must be a reason for this. However, he couldn't figure out what the reason was. It seemed that no matter what he said, it didn't make sense. However, he had to remember this favor. Moreover, no one could bear to owe such a favor between friend and foe. Yi Wuxiang and Dong Wu Lei hadn't noticed that the Black Devil young master had walked far away into the forest. But he had suddenly emerged from the treetops when he had entered the forest. It seemed as if he had glanced at them from afar. Then he had disappeared into the dusky forest like a breeze. A gust of wind blew past, dispersing the sigh of an unknown emotion. However, how could these two brothers care about young black demon at this moment? Elder brother. Dong Wuxiang took a step forward excitedly. Wuxiang, you're fine? Dong Wuxiang couldn't believe it. Oh, I'm fine. Dong Wuxiang naturally knew that his big brother's divine medicine was a top secret. Elder brother was good to him. However, Dong Wuxiang was afraid of his big brother's unscrupulous ways to achieve his goal. Big brother would be in trouble if he knew about it. Therefore, Dong Wuxiang's gaze was evasive, and his words were vague. So fast. Genkai is clearly. Dong Wuxiang wanted to say, Genkai was clearly half dead. So, how did he recover so quickly? Isn't this too fake? However, he didn't say anything after thinking about it. Dong Wuxiang wasn't good at lying. So he couldn't speak. His gaze kept wandering around. You're pretending to be Genkai? Dong Wuxiang finally thought of a possibility. His complexion couldn't help but sink as he asked angrily. Dong Wuxiang opened his eyes wide. He thought for a while and felt that this was a good idea. So he couldn't help but nod foolishly. You're pissing me off. Dong Wuxiang pointed his finger at Dong Wuxiang's nose. He thought that he was so regretful that he almost wanted to commit suicide. I didn't expect that this bastard was pretending. Doesn't that mean that he was watching me make a fool of myself from the beginning? I've lost a lot of face this time. Dong Wuxiang's face turned from white to red, from red to purple, from purple to black, and from black to green. Suddenly he roared, You bastard! Did you enjoy watching me make a fool of myself? He suddenly jumped up and ferociously kicked Dong Wuxiang to the ground. Then he pounced on Dong Wuxiang like a tiger and rode on his body. Then he gnashed his teeth and rained down his fists. Dong Wuxiang didn't dare to fight back. He gritted his teeth and took the beating. He didn't make a sound. Dong Wuxiang's anger would have subsided if he had begged for mercy. But the problem was, what kind of person was Dong Wuxiang? This guy was definitely a super ruthless person who wouldn't even let out a moan when he was smashed to death bone by bone. So, how could he possibly cry out? Not only did he not cry out, but he was also comforting himself in his heart. Elder brother's anger will be appeased if he beats a mortal. Isn't it just getting beaten by a mortal? I can hold on. However, he didn't know that the more he didn't cry out, the angrier Dong Wuxiang got. The angrier he got, the more he got beaten. Dong Wuxiang didn't make a sound even after Dong Wuxiang had beaten him for a long time. I'll beat you to death, you tough bone. Dong Wuxiang's eyes turned green with anger. He ferociously kicked him. This younger brother of his had been like this since childhood. He was naughty, but he didn't admit his mistake. He didn't make a sound no matter how much you beat him. He wouldn't say a word even if you beat him to death. I was wrong? Such a child could really make an adult anxious and angry? Cough cough, this point. Those who have children at home should understand it very well. Dong Wuxiang's eyes suddenly turned red as he continued to beat him. He recalled that he had been so desperate and regretful that he wished he could commit suicide. Then he suddenly sat down on the ground and burst into tears. You bastard! You don't know that you scared me to death just now. How would I explain it to my parents if something had happened to you, stupid pig? You're such a stupid pig. Dong Wu Lei was scared out of his wits when he saw Dong Wuxiang. I wrote this last paragraph 3 times, but I wasn't satisfied. So, I simply didn't describe it and wrote it out plainly. Everyone can experience it for themselves. I've added one more chapter today. Counting last month's, there are 3 chapters today. I'll continue to write. I may not be able to write another chapter before midnight. But I'll need a monthly ticket if I can write another chapter. Well, I'll escape to write, and I'll need to double the time. Please do your best to support me. It'll be difficult to catch up after these 7 days. Of course, it'll be difficult for others to catch up if the distance between us is too big. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.